Okay, guys, we're gonna call this meeting to order. Thank you for being here. Today is Monday, December 8th, 2025, 3 p.m. Placer County Charter Review Committee. And we're gonna go ahead and begin with our flag salutes. So we have a flag this time, straight. Go ahead and join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're gonna do a roll call.
Walker.
Here.
Jansen. Woodward.
Here.
Serena.
Here.
Mace.
Here.
Alexi.
Here.
Bertha.
Here. Okay, I think Chris will be a little late. So do I need to do roll call again or just note the record when he gets here?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the fourth Placer County Charter Review Committee meeting. This late afternoon or evening meeting is open to virtual and in-person participation. If you are attending online at the appropriate time, please use the raise your hand function. If you called in, press *9 to raise your hand and the clerk will call you in the order received. Each commenter will be entitled to 3 minutes of comment time. I will now open public comment for any matters not on the Charter Review Committee agenda. And we'll start here in person and then we'll work our way online. Did anyone do comment cards or should we just, no one filled out, we don't have cards today. Okay. Anyone here in person wish to speak on items not on the agenda? Anyone online?
We do have a hand raised.
Okay.
Greetings, committee members. This is Diane Louise Alessi from District 5 and 6 decades in Placer County. My main focus here is, of course, you guys decided to drop the home rule pursuit, and I think that's a mistake. I still believe that it needs to have a mechanism to do a consortium syndication with other rural counties, our sister counties, so that we can have pushback and actually force the state to come forward with an audit that proves it. And the point I'm making out of all of this is what just happened with Prop 50.
I'm sorry.
That was a gerrymandering.
If you can start over, let's try to get the sound right. Can you do a test for us?
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3.
You have a lot of echo.
Oh, really? You want me to reboot? Well, okay. I'll pick it up at the RENA item 2C. I'm sorry for that. Hopefully it'll work then. If it doesn't, I did make a submission to the charter on that item.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Sure, okay. But I'd like to hear what you have to say. So if you want to log out and log back in, I'll allow you time to speak.
I will do that. Thank you.
Try to reconnect. It sounded like a sound issue.
I will. Thank you.
Do you have anyone else online?
I see no other hands raised.
Okay.
Oh, I see now.
Okay, let's go to the next person.
Hi, it's Donna Delno from Penryn. Can you hear me okay? Hello? Can you hear me okay? No one's responding. Can you hear me okay? Are you there?
Donna.
Okay, there. Yeah, I see you guys all looking, but I can't. I just want to make sure you hear me. I heard Diane Alisi just fine. Our side, so it must be on your side. But I just want to say a quick thing. December 16th is a very big meeting for Penryn. The Hopeway Apartments are coming to the Board of Supervisors. We're fighting for our little tiny town in this project that's could double our population in one fell swoop. So all I could say is just please listen and do whatever you can do to help support our town to make a safe project that doesn't overwhelm us too much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any solution to that sound? It sounds like it's on our.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I see what I can do.
Okay,
Diane is back. If you-
yeah, let's go back to Diane.
Diane,
Okay, I'm going to start with Kent testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. No, I was hearing Donna just fine too, just before I logged out. I don't know if you heard any of that. So it's on your side. Did you hear any of this? Test, test, test. Are you hearing anything? I don't know what to tell you. I think it's on your end. Shoot.
Hear you. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3. Can you test? I'm speaking. You're just not hearing. Hello? Like I said, I was hearing the next caller, Donna Delno. I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to abandon it. I'm not hearing you now either at all.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear us? Dan, are you able to hear us?
Now I can. I wasn't able to a moment ago.
Great. We're gonna start your time now, okay? So go ahead and share what you want to share.
All right, let's see if this works. Okay, I am bringing up the fact that you abandoned giving the boss enforcement tools to pursue like a conditional acceptance or an audit to the state to prove that they can have a statewide concern when it comes to eliminating our home rule powers over our land use. And the reason I'm bringing it up again is the fact that we just got bamboozled into Prop 50, now dividing Placer County into 3 districts to basically dilute our power. And what makes us the county that everybody's trying to seek out, because we are still full of dirt more than concrete. I think it's incredibly important for this committee to give or suggestions to the boss to enrich those tools. And that means doing a syndication, and not with Sacramento County, but with our sister counties that are much like us, like El Dorado, Yolo, Sutter, so on and so forth, and give the boss the ability to do that syndication and put a fund together so that we can do pushback and we can force the state to prove its numbers. With Prop 50, we've been divided. That was gerrymandering, and it's just going to amp the whole thing up further. And we are completely going to become Anaheim. I was born in Anaheim. I've seen it. I've seen this movie. I don't want to see that movie happening here in Placer County. So with that, I'm going to yield, and thank you for bearing with it. Hopefully you heard most of it.
We heard you loud and clear. Thank you for hanging with us. Sorry about the issues with the sound, and thank you for sharing that. Anyone else online?
I see.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close public comment for items not on the agenda. Let's go ahead and move to our first item on the, we should acknowledge Chris has arrived. And so welcome. We already did roll call, so just want to make sure that record knows.
Daddy getting walk up music.
No, you don't get that.
Next time. Pardon my stutter.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the September 29th meeting. Any comments here from the committee regarding those minutes? Any comments from the public? Open public comment on those minutes? Anyone online? Okay. I do need a motion for us to move on.
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a first.
Second.
We have a first and a second. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote for this.
Marina,
Aye.
Nish,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Jansen,
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Alessi,
Aye.
Herzl,
Aye. Go ahead and move on to the next item. As a brief overview, the committee has met 3 times. And staff has reviewed and researched all topics identified by the committee and the public. And today's report organizes these into 4 key categories: approved committee recommendations, pending further direction, informal or informational reports, and then closed items. Make sure you take a look at the report to identify those. And I'm sure staff will cover those as well. Our discussion today will mainly focus on the items pending further direction and informational reports. So we'll begin with the items pending further direction. These are items for which the committee has requested additional information, which is provided in the accompanying staff memo. Staff will present on the items A through C, after which the committee will deliberate on either, provide further direction or determine that the item has been adequately addressed and may be formally closed. It's requested that each item be discussed separately, with each receiving an individual motion to address. And so we'll go ahead and turn it over to staff. Ben, will you be doing that?
I will be.
Okay.
Yes. Good afternoon, Ben Mills with the County Executive Office. I will begin with 2A, which is the Board of Supervisors compensation methodology. Currently, the charter ties board salaries to the average of El Dorado, Nevada, and Sacramento counties. The committee has requested that staff compare the Board of Supervisors salaries to that of the broader labor market used for Placer County employees' compensation analyses, which includes 9 counties based on geographic, demographic, and economic factors. The comparative data and the salary setting methods for those counties can be found on page 3. Table 1. And with this item, staff is seeking direction on whether the committee would like to revise the existing Board of Supervisors compensation formula or leave it as is in the charter. On to item 2B, which is the performance-based metrics. At previous meetings, the committee and members of the public raised questions about whether Placer County uses performance-based metrics or PBMs, particularly in areas such as contracts and affordable housing. The county does use PBMs across many operations such as budgeting, program evaluation, contract monitoring, and housing reporting. The committee asked that staff prepare draft language to include into the final report from the committee to the board, encouraging the expanded use of performance-based metrics across county government. The draft is included in the staff memo on page 4. And with this item, staff is seeking direction on whether you'd like to include that narrative in your final report to the board or have any recommended changes to the draft language. On to item 2C, this is the regional housing needs assessment numbers and the zoning authority. This item has been discussed in detail in the last few meetings and was continued from this most recent September meeting. The committee requested that a proposal be presented based on the comments received in the previous meeting. Committee member Mesh provided that draft language proposal, which can be found in attachment B of the staff report. Staff has reviewed the proposal with county council. Land use, zoning, housing obligations, particularly RHNA, are considered areas of statewide concern, and counties cannot override those state mandates through a charter. However, there may be areas where the charter could speak to county controlled processes, such as establishing advisory bodies or funding priorities, but direct zoning restrictions would likely be preempted. Staff is seeking direction on this item specifically to whether you would like to continue developing the language that's in the staff report, include the proposal that's included in the report as its final form to the Board of Supervisors, or to formally conclude the item. And with that, that concludes this portion of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with questions from the committee for staff on that. And so happy to entertain, we don't need to go in order, but if you're ready, everyone ready?
Are we gonna just use all three topics and just bounce around, or do we want to go one by one?
We can do them in order, and it was recommended to do it that way. So we'll just go ahead and begin with the Board of Supervisor compensation methodology. We'll start there. Any comments or questions from the committee to staff regarding that?
Do we have HR here?
We do, we have,
Awesome. Okay, great. I mean, I don't have any, I guess, particular questions. My recollection was that, you were going to provide some comments or thoughts, and maybe I'm wrong, but, some comments or thoughts on, use of CPI, as a possible alternative to, the methods that we currently use to, establish compensation. Also, just as a, kind of a matter of, I guess, public disclosure or whatever, I did spend a little time with Supervisor Jones, who's the one that appointed me here, and talked to her about this and a few other topics as well.
Afternoon, committee members, Joe Ambrosini, HR Director. In terms of the CPI, we did look at that, and for the chart, most of the comparators, they don't use CPI. Certainly doesn't mean that that couldn't be an option to be used. I think it sounds like really there are several options you have at your disposal. So most appear that they tie it to state superior court judges, some percentage there. Of course, there's Clapper County's current way of doing it, which is averaging those three agencies. We're looking at a CPI model. We do not have a recommendation on that. We're certainly comfortable with the current way of doing it, but doesn't mean that we couldn't be comfortable doing it and administering it in a different way. So we just didn't find most using the CPI method for board compensation.
Do county employees have compensation raises associated with CPI?
They do not.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was misinformed then on that, but I appreciate the clarification on that.
Yeah.
Can I clarify? So when the county negotiates with the unions, CPI is not part of the equation?
CPI may be brought up as a topic or as a negotiating tactic, but we don't ultimately agree to what we call those general wage increases or GWIs. We don't tie those to CPI. There's years when county employee compensation raises are given that exceed CPI. Some years they don't. If you look back probably at a 10 or 20-year mark, we probably exceed it, but it's not tied on an annual basis. But certainly if cost of living is very high, it's not uncommon for labor groups to try to negotiate to get that. When CPI is low, they may ignore it and just come up with different numbers. So it's really just depends on how the negotiation goes.
And merit increases obviously are not CPI related.
Yeah, merit's just tied to the annual performance reviews. Yep.
What's in the examples, I don't know if you guys covered this, in the examples where the state judges' salaries were used as a percentage, is it similar to what we're seeing in this chart, the lowest being around 50% and the highest being around 75%?
Yes, and even in prior information that was provided to you for agencies outside this comparator group, it could even be as much as 90 or 100%.
Okay.
So we're not exactly sure how those percentages were arrived at, like 63, 70.
Yeah.
There was probably some methodology years ago, and maybe that practice has continued to roll over.
Okay, thank you.
How is a superior court judge's salary determined?
I
don't mind jumping in on that one. The Superior Court judge's salary is set based on the average of all statewide workers. So whatever the average increase is statewide for all those workers, they receive that increase on an annual basis. state workers' salary is set through labor negotiations, through committee, through budget approval processes, ultimately codified by the legislature. So it's kind of a two-step process.
Well, we got circular logic in this thing. Then. It's going just.
Yeah.
It
So
really is.
has there been a lot of fluctuation in the quantity of state workers that ultimately affect the judge's salary?
Not that I'm aware of. So it's based on the average of the salary of those state workers, not the number of state workers.
Oh, sorry, I misheard.
No problem.
I think just another point of clarification. The county does not utilize the state as any comparable, so we don't typically benchmark to the state with any classifications within our organization. That might just be helpful. And I think one more comment about CPI is that typically if using CPI, it's a formula because there's different factors that come into play as far as areas, regions, and that sort of thing. So it's a further complex formula based on several factors. So if that was a consideration, there would need to be further analysis, at least a recommendation on what levels of the formula would need to be present.
What does the county use for benchmarking for employees?
Well, we currently use our 9 comparable jurisdictions that it's in your staff report.
So are we in a place where we're opening up discussion about
Not-
this?
not yet.
Questions?
Yeah, well, I need to open the, I think we'll go through each topic with questions and clarification,
Okay.
and then I'll open for public comment. And then we can get into our own discussion and decisions about the process. So
You bet.
if you're done with your information collecting, we can go on to the next topic.
Next topic? You don't want to run this one to the ground?
I'm good. I'm good to stay on this here. Is there any thought, I'm just curious, a question for maybe the committee is, any thought about clarifying with the percentage? You know, when we see these percentages, it's difficult to determine just which percentage we might land on. And so,
I have some thoughts on that.
okay, great,
I do as well.
great.
And looking at the data that was given to us, what I saw was a comparison of counties that had a similar population within 20,000 people of our population. And I just looked at it and went, well, if we're paying supervisors for governance, they're governance of the populace, therefore these would be comparisons that would be legitimate. Of those 3 other counties that were given, all of them used the judge salary as a basis. One of them uses 63%, one 68%, one 70%.
Yeah.
So given that, it seems to me, just stepping back a second, this formula that we have that was passed by the voters, I think was ill-conceived to begin with because it compares salaries of 3 counties that are basically not comparable. Nevada County being so much considerably smaller and Sacramento County being considerably larger. So I think it was personally, I think it was ill-conceived, but it was a way to get the supervisors a raise at the time. My thought would be to take these comparative counties, look at what they are paying their supervisors and come up with our own number. Now, if you average their numbers, then our number would be 67% of the judge's salary. Doesn't mean we have to use an average. We could use anything in there. We have a range from 63 to 70%. We could pick a number if we want to, something that would put our supervisors on par with supervisors of counties that have the same populace. That was my thought process. It will, obviously, whatever number we choose is going to be an increase in pay based on what they get paid now. And that obviously is going to be the harder nut to crack when it comes to putting this before voters to get it approved. But nonetheless, it seems to me, for simplicity's sake, this would be one of a better way to use comparative jurisdictions that we're comparing something that's similar versus what we have now. And it would also provide us a basis. When I look through the list we were given, about 60% of the counties use this formula, using the judges' salaries.
Mhm.
And there's other ways of doing it as well. So those were my thoughts, is to take and look at these comparative counties and say, well, this is the way they're doing it. This is how they've come up with it. We fit in that category, so let's look at something that compares to that. And I'm just throwing that out there for discussion, but that's my thought process.
Can I, so, when you say similar, populations, are you referring to attachment A,
Table one.
Table
Yeah,
two?
Table one.
table two?
And let me, hang on a second, what do we got here? Attachment A, table 2, yes.
Yeah, he's looking at this.
Wait,
one.
which-
Yeah,
you're
this
looking-
one Right here.
You're looking at table two?
Yeah, yeah.
Table two.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I thought you were looking at table one.
Yeah, yeah, that's why. I asked, yeah.
So-
Table 1 is the formula that we use right now.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking table one and
yeah,
the 9
yeah,
comparative.
yeah, that's,
He's
The
talking
labor
about,
market.
this one.
Oh, you're talking about table 1, no,
Table
we're
one.
talking about attachment
And
A,
that has the
table
same,
1.
it has the same information.
that's why I asked the
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So that's those 4 counties, or
Three.
3, Monterey, Santa Barbara and Solano,
Mhm.
they average 67% of a judge's salary.
Yes, you take the 3, yes, yeah.
Just curious if we average their salary, I guess, do they all use the same formula? Is that what I heard you say?
They use the judges.
They use the
Yeah.
judge's formula?
Formula,
And that's in table 1.
Table
Bouncing
1
back
and
and
whatever
forth.
page, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Committee members, if I could, we are in the phase of this where we're asking questions. It does sound like we're starting to get to that kind of deliberation, deciding process. I just
Table, yeah,
suggest that
Yeah.
perhaps we take public comment
Yes.
first before
Okay.
we
Yeah.
move to that
I guess,
deciding. portion.
maybe, what questions do we have regarding the percentage and decision-making for staff? Do we have any, before we get into the deciding which percentage? Do we need any more clarification around that?
I do have,
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
oh, no, I was just gonna say, I don't believe so. I
Okay.
have statements to make. but-
For HR, and by the way, thank you again for being here, and we do need to rely on your experience with this. I think it seems as though there's we share an objective, although perhaps some people disagree, I don't know. That bringing this back, getting away from the current approach would be a reasonable idea. Based on the comments here from my colleague, if we went to 66% of what appears to be about $230,000, which appears to be the Superior Court judge's pay, that would bring us to about $160,000 a year. 164, okay. And it's probably in here, and I don't recall it though. What are we currently paying our supervisors? 114.
Yeah.
Plus 77.
So, now we get a little bit into debate, but it just seems to me as though that would be, it would make them very happy. It's probably a little excessive. So we may want to, recognize the calculations you just put out would be good. But for the moment, we may want to go with a smaller percentage if that's something we wanted to do here. So would you agree with that? I mean, when I talked to Supervisor Jones, she was very pleased with the last pay cycle because of Sacramento's bounce. But what would we typically see in a year based on your experience? In other words, what pay increase is typically done based on the current methodology?
You're wondering from board members or?
Yeah, no, not employees. That's not our charter, but for the supervisors.
Well, it ranges because it's
Yeah.
based on the other counties.
Yeah.
And in some instances, even Nevada County, even though small in size, they were feeling that they needed to catch up their supervisors. So they did some pretty significant increases as well as Sacramento County. So you've seen some significant increases for the board members because of that. So it's based on whatever the other jurisdictions do as far as the increases to their
Yeah.
supervisors. So we don't have a control of that, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, do you know what a Superior Court judge pay raise typically looks like?
Did you do any analysis?
I did a little bit of an analysis. I didn't go back too far, but it looked like anywhere between 2 and 5% on an annual basis. But there's definitely some off years on that.
Okay,
As stated earlier, the county does not benchmark to any state classifications.
Right.
We see ourselves typically very different than the state just by structure and size and all the things. So we just typically do not do those comparisons.
Sorry, question, when you said it was off, was it higher or lower?
Sorry, we can't hear that. Loretta.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What were
I
you-
turned my head. I'm sorry, when Ben mentioned that there were a few years that it was off, I was curious as to whether it was higher or lower.
Oh, okay.
They typically go in the range of being higher.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move us on to the next topic for clarification. If everyone's okay with that. So next one is performance-based metrics. Any questions for staff on that one? Okay.
I just want, just a clarification, this, find it here, whatever we wrote up. The draft language, this is a suggestion, a recommendation, but not a part of the charter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
The direction received from the committee was to draft some language to include into a final report
Okay.
as more a recommendation to the board, not related to the charter.
I just wanted to clarify that. Other than that, I have no questions.
Okay. Any others? Not seeing any. Okay, we're gonna go on to the next topic where we look at the RENA numbers and ability to rezone properties. Any clarification or questions on this topic before we open public comment?
I know that Einar had a kind of specific set of language that we were kind of asking you guys to spitball with. And so I obviously see here that you're kind of pushing back a little bit on that, saying we can't work that because it ultimately would encroach upon statewide concern. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can respond to that. So there's two big concerns here with the language proposed, and that is on the first side of it, anything that has to do with the RENA numbers and changing those RENA numbers is certainly something that has been set by the state. And I don't believe there is any kind of legal authority to modify that based on the requirements.
And there's nothing in this proposal that suggests changing RENA numbers.
Right, and I'm getting to that piece.
Okay,
That's
okay.
The second piece.
You always start there, but that's not the proposal.
Right, well, I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of kind of the background. The other piece of that is the proposal does talk about rezoning and putting limits on where properties would be rezoned. The authority to rezone properties is a police power held by the county that is delegated to it by the state under certain statutory frameworks that require a public hearing process. That process cannot be modified, at least from my interpretation of that, by the charter. And the reason for that is that that process is set forward by state law. So there is no room to say that or mandate that only certain properties would be rezoned, because that would contradict the state requirements as to how a property would be rezoned. So I don't believe there is any authority that would allow us to include in the charter some sort of denial of the rezone. And the reason I talk about the RENA numbers as well is some of that language talked about accommodating housing and affordable housing. I think that it is very likely that the state would view that kind of language is also an area outside of the authority of the county by way of the state law having to do with affordable housing and permissible by right. So I don't think there is a way that you can use language to get in the charter to control any of those topics based on the amount of state overreach. So that's why there is no edit to the proposal provided.
What does the state do to us if we did that? Are they actually going to get up off their feet and do anything about it?
That's really hard to tell. What I would say is if you implement a requirement by charter that's ineffective, it would be void as a matter of law. So the county could not enforce it, but there is the possibility that the state could initiate some sort of action against the county on that basis as well.
It would have to be tested in court, I presume.
Right.
So. There's a little bit, I'm having a hard time with an issue here, and that is that you're saying that you're interpreting what we've suggested, which is setting forth a goal for the county in its planning to co-locate high-density development with other urban development type. I mean, that's kind of a general way of saying it. I don't care how we say it, that's the. And you're saying that impinges on the state or the county's police powers to rezone a piece of property. Is that correct?
What I'm saying is state law has designated the process for rezoning, and I think the language goes beyond identifying a preference. It certainly says shall instead locate high density zoning intended to meet state low income housing requirements within or immediately adjacent to the land zoned by the county for urban, suburban, residential. So that to me is a mandatory language.
So try to help me with this. I'm not stuck on any language. I wrote a version and I ran it through ChatGPT and it spit out a different version, right? What we're trying to do is protect rural areas from the encroachment of high density development that's incompatible with the surrounding area, and instead locate high density development, which state requires that we do, near or within other areas that the county designates for urban development. Counties, you've got several areas of the county that are designated for urban development, and you can designate more of them, through the general plan process. And if you designate an area for urban development, I think that the high density development that's required in order for the county to meet its obligations to provide zoned land for affordable housing should be located within those areas that the county has decided should have urban development. I don't care how you write it, but it doesn't seem to me that it impinges on any county authority or privileges regarding the zoning of a particular piece of property. I mean, the county has, general plans. It says this area will be high density and this area will be low density. This is kind of an extension of that, setting forth a goal.
Yeah, and I would say, I think the state has been very diligent in the past decade of imposing the requirements or lack of requirements that local entities can put on affordable housing and multifamily housing. And there's specifically the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Act, which requires that housing needs to be located in certain areas. So to, on the county side, impose some kind of requirement in the charter that affordable housing and multifamily housing could not exist in certain areas would contradict state law. And so I agree that we likely disagree on this opinion. What I'm telling you is based on my research and my understanding of state law that this would contradict. Now, the committee can decide to do whatever it wants, but I need to note, at least for the committee's purposes and the public's purposes, that I believe there's a conflict.
So there's no way you think that you could rewrite that so that it provided clear direction on what the intent of the public is, assuming that the public votes for it, as a guideline without crossing the legal line.
I don't believe there's a way it can be addressed through the charter. The Constitution is fairly clear about the allowances for the charter. There is a mechanism to get to where you're talking about, and I think that's through the Placer County General Plan. And that general plan and the requirements for that and the process for it is already set by state law. I just don't think there's a way to get through the charter.
Well, from what I'm hearing back and forth, it seems like you might be settling on the idea that we're trying to implement an absolute restriction, whereas I think maybe the happy middle ground is much more of a weighting, like there's more weight or deference in somehow in the language that can apply to what we're trying to achieve here, that says if you have two different parcels. One is already urban and one is rural. Deference needs to be given to the urban one for that type of planning, if at all possible, rather than them being considered equal.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that in terms of a preference instead. The problem that I have is under the case law, I believe if the state law has provided any kind of authority over that area, then that is an area where the state law occupies the entire field, and there is no room for local authority that might add or disrupt it. And in specific, I know I cited it in the cases in the staff report, but I wanted to just read from the Supreme Court case that deals with this topic because I think it's important and it might be helpful. Whenever the legislature is seen fit to adopt a general scheme for the regulation of a particular subject, the entire control over whatever phases of the subject are covered by state legislation ceases as far as local legislation is concerned. So basically, when the state provides guidance that operates that field, that precludes the ability then for the local government to then put in kind of guidance or restrictions. And the general thought process behind that is the state was intentional in drafting that language. It was also intentional in the fact that it did not include certain things in that language. So now for a local government to come in and provide that input on it is essentially not warranted under the structure.
Does that case at all give any delineation between what is chartered already and what is not?
No, that case doesn't get into, I guess, that piece of it. This is a requirement. This case deals with the difference between state law and local law and the interaction between them. It's not a case on charters, and there's very limited cases on charters specifically.
So the county or the state requirement doesn't specify where. It just specifies that you shall provide.
The state requirement for rezoning requires a public hearing process, notification requirements, goes through a planning agency of the county. Here's our planning department. That's the process it requires for rezoning.
All right, and we're not proposing to change that, right?
Well, your language that you're proposing in the charter is to say, no, you can't rezone in certain areas, and you can't do that rezoning, which I'm telling you is, I think, conflicts with state law because state law already describes the process for rezoning.
But we're not proposing to change the process. We're proposing to put limitations on where the process would be applied.
I think we're getting into discussion because I have some questions on that too, but it seems like we're discussing that.
I'll get back to more of a general question. Sure, go for it.
Go ahead, I can.
Okay, do we have, this might be more of like a homework item for staff, but I'm inclined to think of like historical districting and whether any historical districting in this county has persevered through RHNA, and has any of it been rezoned for high density, or is historical zoning almost immune to any of this? Because I'm kind of curious about some of like the historical data of how the county has gone about figuring out what is considered historical here in this county, because we do happen to be one of the oldest. We were the seat of government before the state existed, and whether the supervisors have any intrinsic inclination to support the idea of protecting the county through historical zoning instead of as like a kind of roundabout way of dealing with RHNA. Say like there are certain places in this county where gold was found that, despite being rural, needs to be protected as historical sites.
Yeah, and I would say that's not exactly the way that zoning works. The zoning that is in place at this point is really everything that was brought forward from historically. And you can't go back and look at in an area that's zoned under today's standards and say, no, it should have been zoned differently historically, because that's actually a property right to those people existing within that zoning. And they have that base level of understanding that they get to build whatever is allowed in that zoning unless you go through a public process to change it. So you can't really go back and say, well, this should have been zoned differently and therefore it is.
I wasn't implying that necessarily. I guess it's because I'm a little bit in the dark as opposed does anyone know of any particular historical districts that we have in Placer County?
There are certain historic districts in the county. The government center is one area that has some historic requirements with it.
Is one too.
Rockland does.
And they're, by the way, putting in high density.
Okay, see, and that's the type of stuff I was curious about.
And that's what I would get at. State law over the past 10 years has basically removed a lot of impediments to affordable housing, multifamily housing. You couldn't rezone it out of that area. It's likely you couldn't rezone it without some sort of repercussions from the state in terms of finding other areas that have appropriate housing and filling those. You'd have to go through that state process of rezoning, and you'd also have to go through the housing element compliance in terms of identifying the available number of units that are out there. It's not something that I think you can do through the charter.
Gotcha.
Clayton,
I think Chris.
I think you just
sorry.
said the answer to the question I was going to ask is my experience with this topic, which I have some personal experience with it in my neighborhood. There are as a result of state law, there are now an expanded scope of zones, zoning that now qualify for basically low income affordable housing and what have you. So to take a very small community in the mountains, and I don't want to, I hate to say Penryn because I don't know the uniqueness of that circumstance, but something like Penryn, you'd almost have to strip all the zoning completely out of it and just sort of call it rural zoning only. And then Penryn itself wouldn't be able to have businesses and function. So the problem is the minimal amount of zoning that's needed, even in rural communities, is now triggered by the state to bring in other types of uses that were never intended. So that isn't unique to the rural areas. That is now across the board in the state. And I appreciate what you're trying to do, and hopefully I'm not stepping over the information gathering, but I don't think practically speaking, you land there. Maybe that's to discuss that when we vote on it. Because it's not one, right? It's not one zone you're trying to avoid here. There are too many. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Does that make sense, Clayton? Did I say anything there that was
Yeah,
accurate?
I think that's.
Yeah.
let's keep, any other questions for clarification for this topic?
I have one quick
Okay.
one. First of all, Einard, thanks for doing this. I completely agree with what you wrote. I love it. And then I thought there's not a chance, but nonetheless,
Well,
I'm telling you, I appreciate the work you put into it, and I couldn't agree more. And I think if you put this out for a vote, the 90% or 75% of Placer County would love it. So a question for you, Clayton, or Ben, either one. Is the charter a place where you can put kind of a sense or a theme or a perspective that should be applicable when the board considers zoning decisions and things like that without tying people's hands? Or is that something you would generally see in the general plan exclusively? And I don't know whether I was clear enough, but maybe you get it.
Yeah, I do get it. I think the only area that you could put it in is the general plan. I don't think you could put it in the charter because it does interfere then with that public hearing process and the statutory process for rezoning.
Because there's really two words here, I think. And I bet we could get to an answer. And the first one is prohibiting and the second one is direct. So prohibiting is in the first paragraph and direct is in the second paragraph. If you eliminated those words, you might have a sense for, listen, board, this is serious business. It really is. I mean, there are a lot of people almost universally. I mean, there's 100 people that come out all the time. And then the rest of the community comes out when it's right in their front door.
Yeah.
The problem with this is this shows up in your front door and and suddenly you have a 5-story building or whatever is in Penryn, and it's a big deal to people. And so, we need to get this to the board.
it would be nice to get this to the board in some way, shape or form, because it is truly a problem. But this language, even without the directive nature of it, is probably more suited to a general plan. Doesn't mean we can't provide it as a recommendation, then the board hears it, you know.
A different tack. So every county is supposed to provide an adequate amount of zoning so that their required affordable housing, whatever you call it, can be built. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, yes, I think you can, I agree with that.
And does Placer County have that currently? Does it have designated places for high density zoning within its general plans that are adequate to meet the?
Yeah, I would say there's just one qualification on that. You have to rezone it, but then in order for it to be in the housing element in the general plan, it has to be determined by the state to also be a viable site. So you have zoning is one piece of it, but then there also has to be an ability to actually build within that area.
Yeah, so where I was going with this is, you know, maybe we can change this into direction and I'm very happy to have it just be a memorandum, kind of like this other thing that we've got on performance based. But I think the direction should be, in other words, it seems like what you're saying is that the place where this needs to get handled is within the general plan. And the county has a current general plan underway.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
if we were to put forward something to the Board of Supervisors to say, you know, within this general plan that you're currently doing, you really ought to try to, you know, make sure that you've got enough adequately zoned land so that the county doesn't build affordable housing. It zones for affordable housing, then the private sector has to build it or not build it. And that the county should make sure that it does so, and it does so within a way that minimizes the impact on the rural community.
I think you certainly could do it as a general recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
Not contained within the charter, but under that other framework of this is something we think the community needs. This is what came up.
Well, I was just following, you know, I think Dan, you had a good suggestion. I'm just trying to figure out where we point it.
I guess what my question is that directed at the planning commission or is it directed at the supervisors?
I think you need to point it at the supervisor.
Yeah, and so
because
that-
I think
The only way
So
it makes its way down.
Well, but that's, I'm a little confused about where we are right now in the process because we seem to be in the discussion, but.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
I had some points about that, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
hold off until.
Yeah,
we're
and that's
in
what I'm
that
trying to do,
particular
but we
area, too.
keep going there, yeah.
I would also mention the scope of this charter review committee is to provide recommendations on the charter to the board.
Yeah.
We have taken the tact in the past that there were other recommendations that wouldn't fit in the charter that we've directed to the board. I do think it is one step further to make recommendations to an agent, to a portion of the county other than the Board of Supervisors, though.
Exactly.
Because that's not within the scope of what you're being
Yeah,
asked.
that's one.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, can I open public comment? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna open public comment for these 3 items, and just as a reminder, they are Board of Supervisor compensation methodology, performance-based metrics, and regional housing needs assessment numbers, ability to rezone properties. Those are the 3 that I like to open up public comment. Anyone here in person wish to discuss those? Okay, sure we have folks online. Okay,
Muriel, go ahead and I need your comment.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Because I know we had problems earlier. Okay,
Yeah, we can
saw
hear
the
you.
finger. I'm Muriel Davis and I am a Penman resident. And I would like to see that the charter do this recommendation to really look at when they plan to rezone rural areas. Like
then when they rezoned the area in Penryn, they just did a programmatic EIR. When they rezone an area in the rural areas, I would like to see the charter recommend that they do a regular EIR to evaluate the safety and the health and the other hazards that would be created when a parcel is rezoned that was supposed to be, according to the community plan, have maybe a low density housing with commercial, and then they change it to be a rezone of the RM30. And they did not do a regular EIR. They just included it with a programmatic EIR. And it doesn't make sense to hurt the areas of the rural communities and their safety and the traffic and the schools and everything just by picking out a parcel and saying, okay, let's make that an RM30. And I think the county is allowed to evaluate the properties with an EIR before they rezone. I don't care what the state law says. The state law also says that affordable, I don't care if it's affordable. High density housing is a problem if you're putting it in a place where it doesn't fit and it creates a health and safety hazard in a community like Penryn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Muriel. How many do we have, Sasha?
We have 2 more.
Okay.
Diane, go ahead and use the mic and give your comments, please.
All right, I'm going to test. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, hallelujah. Diane Louise Alessi again from Christian Valley Park Community Services District, District 5, 6 decades in the county. Okay, so I hopefully I can squeeze this in or you'll give me some latitude. What you need to understand, and I was hoping Clayton would be more clarifying for you all. Back in 2018, the state passed SB 330. That was an overlay. And so, such as Penryn, being that's the poster child right now. But there's a 330 overlay by HCD. If you go to their site, whatever, those are the kind of properties that are getting picked on because they already put an urbanization overlay. They did that on half of Christian Valley. I have urban overlay across the street from my house. My side of the street is still rural ag, according to HCD, starting there. That's a problem. I've been on my bullhorn that all of these laws need to be repealed flat out. That's a whole nother subject. But the point is that we got to quit letting Sacramento do things like they just did with Prop 30. They find it, important to do that in between a census. They couldn't wait to 2030, to do a redistricting and do it constitutional. In 2018, this county had an opportunity to speak up about that overlay. Not one county or city stood up and made one comment to HCD. So the charter needs to have some kind of teeth in it that keeps an ear to the ground and stops that when there is a comment period to eliminate that type of thing. That's number one. Number two, what's going on with this rezoning is the Planning Commission is playing fast and loose with numbers. So they took a lot of properties and they put RM30 on them, but they built in an 80% fluctuation in there so that when it doesn't get built by 2031, it gets tacked on to RENA 7, those numbers. What happened in Penryn is it got RM30, but the project for Hope Way is 21 units per. The other thing the charter is not addressing, the fact that we've got this little shenanigans going. Well, the way the legislature's going, there's something called underutilization, and HCD can say, well, you've got all these RM30s, but you're only doing 20 unit projects per acre. That's underutilization, and they're still going to force more rezones, and they're going to look under the 330 overlays to dump those. then we have to put in some kind of protections, and I think everything should be RM20 or less. And we do the proper thing so that we don't get our foot in a bear trap with these
Diane, are you almost finished?
overutilizations,
Are you almost finished?
underutilizations. I know this, you guys went in this diatribe that you don't understand how this thing works. Get it in the charter that the developers can't come back and weasel their way out of it, because when you do arena on it, it should be affordable. It's
Can you hear
not.
me?
They buy themselves out of it. So with that, I guess I will yield.
Thank you for your comments. I know it can feel short. Stay connected here. So we have another person, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ron, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments, please.
It's Donna Delno again from Penryn, 25-year resident, fighting since we got here to keep it as rural as we could. So thank you for everything you're talking about. Muriel and Diane are my heroes. They know way more than I do, but we have a life-changing decision for our town coming in 8 days for the Board of Supervisors. It's gone viral. All the news stations will be there. You know, whatever we can do to make sure that development is appropriate for Penryn. You know, we've asked that this project that is 240 units be downsized to 59 because it's 0.22% of the population, or the shortfall of 1219 RENA numbers, which come from SACOG, which is a non-government agency. I also want to question, how can we go back and look and see how many units we are short, because so many people are leaving California because it's so expensive, and fire insurance and all of that. So I'm just, excuse me, looking to make sure, do everything you can to protect the small towns. Again, we're not closed off to affordable housing. We just want the density to be correct. So again, our town is 1,059. It's confirmed by Ryan Ronco at the election division and the census that this project coming in, we've done all the math, 1,344 people are coming in. That doubles our town. That is just not okay. And it, like I said, all the news will be there. I don't know what we can do between now and next Tuesday. This is a travesty, and it's going to change the town forever. So, and do what you can. Remember, again, the little towns, our little town can be a buffer. We could take a small project, or you could take the 240 and divide it into 3 different projects and scatter them, but putting this huge project behind 13-foot walls and on a little tiny road, I mean, the whole thing is just a travesty. So continue to listen to us, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Is anyone else on? Okay. We'll go ahead and close public comment. And I think, we'll move on to our discussion for these 3 items. And is it okay if we just go in order again? You guys okay if we separate these and make a decision for each one? Okay.
Chair, if I could, I just wanted to respond to some of this public comment.
Okay, that'd be great.
It's just briefly. There was a comment about requiring an EIR for certain affordable housing projects. I think that would be problematic both at a charter level and at a county level, just because for those affordable housing projects, the state also, as part of this legislation to remove local control, has required that they be by right approvals so that they are not subject to CEQA. So including something in the charter would directly contradict state law on that, and the board couldn't even act outside of the charter because it would contradict state law and would result in a disapproval of our housing element. There was mention about an overlay. SB 330 is the Housing Crisis Act. There's nothing in that legislation that I'm aware of that requires an overlay. There was an overlay that the county originally used to try and solve that rezoning issue that we had in this housing element. There was a court case, City of Clovis, that actually disproved the use of that overlay. HCD had been recommending the use of an overlay up until that point. When that court case came out, then we had to shift gears, and essentially no longer could we do an overlay. The guidance from HCD had been incorrect. So then we had to process a full rezone instead of just an overlay. And an overlay, just so you're all aware, it keeps the base zoning, but then puts a overlay zone over it that requires additional restrictions.
That still exists on their website, because I only saw it a few weeks ago. And they still have it appearing that way, so they haven't changed anything on their end.
Yeah, I can't speak as to what they put up on their website, but I can say that there was a court ruling and that resulted in us not being able to use an overlay for purposes of the rezoning for that RM 30 multifamily 30
Okay.
units per acre designation. And another note, which is somewhat on topic, somewhat off topic. The that decision to rezone the Hopeway property through that mandatory rezone process, the density being requested on that Hopeway project could have been built without it being rezoned. It was zoned commercial, it allowed multifamily, and with a density bonus for affordable housing, they would still be able to build that same amount of units. So putting it in the mandatory rezone process helped the county because we were able to then attribute 240 units as part of that mandatory rezone, but this project could still be coming forward even if we had not included it in. So I just wanted to be able to provide that commentary because I heard something a little bit different in the public comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
Can I ask one quick question on that? The law or the guidance about an EIR is not yet in place, right? So you elected to do a programmatic EIR, which honestly, I cannot recall the details on, but you could have done a full EIR, or is that not true?
I guess we could have done a full EIR at that point for the rezone. If it is a multifamily project, there are state laws that say that those are no longer discretionary approvals under CEQA. So you cannot require anything. EIR, mitigated negative declaration, anything, because they're not subject to CEQA.
Do you think the caller was referring to the programmatic EIR that was done during the rezone process?
I think the comment I heard was that programmatic rezone programmatic EIR should have been more detailed, and that you should require for projects that come forward that they do a full EIR to analyze it. And what I'm telling you is I believe that's in contradiction with state law that has allowed some of these to be my right. And keep in mind the legislature's had 10 plus years at removing all of the local impediments that could prevent projects from moving forward. That's what you've seen all these housing laws pass in the past 10 years or over, removing the ways that the local authorities, the counties and cities could decide to not move forward with projects because of various reasons.
Clayton, clarifying on the EIR, the projects like this still have to have traffic studies. They still have to have water flow studies. I mean, those are elements of an EIR. They still have to be considered. I know, but again, my local experience where I'm at, there's traffic issues that are being dealt with.
Yeah, it depends on the nature of studies, but some of those studies can still be required. You just can't use it as a means to deny the project on the basis of an environmental issue, or even to have to analyze that environment on an environmental side.
Or downsize the project or otherwise effectuate it in a manner that gets, okay.
Since you had mentioned the Hopeway projects, I mean, you're saying that it didn't require a rezone, but I think what's kind of missing in some of this is the kind of top-down pressure where the supervisors wouldn't have approved that project because of public input, but because of RENA, they felt the pressure to approve it, despite it already being zoned for that type of project. Am I correct?
I can't speak to the thought process of the supervisors when they made that decision. All I can say is, and I'm nervous about getting us too far off topic here, but that project, because it's 100% affordable, is entitled to density bonuses under the state density bonus law. And I believe it was somewhere in that it had a max at 8 units per acre, and with 8 or 10, and with the density bonus, it could be to that 21. So it could have gone forward because it's 100% affordable under state density bonus.
Okay, let's get back on track here, and then we're going to talk about that more. But if we can get to discussion with the Board of Supervisor compensation methodology, I'm really interested, and I'm sure many of you are, to figure out how we can bring this back, to our own county. I think some ownership there, and I think we have some pretty good data. We've had a number of rounds of this. We've got some comparable counties, and so I'd like to hear the committee's discussion and recommendations. And if we need to get to rationale, we can backwards there. But if we can get some clarity with where are you at with perhaps aligning and a direction for Board of Supervisor compensation, where are you guys at?
Can I take a swing?
Yeah.
If I may. I like Larry's idea here, and I have two concerns about it. One is if we go with the comparable counties and we've only identified 3, and we end up with a 67% of judges' salaries, that's about a $50,000 bump. So my two concerns are, number one, 3 is not a very big number, right? One of those counties went one way or the other in a dramatic fashion, that's going to have a Sacramento type of impact. It's a concern we have right now. So if it's the will of the commission to head this direction, I would recommend we try to identify at least 2 other counties. So we're averaging 5 instead of 3. And second, that we would impose that there's not if this were to go through, that it would include a clause that the salaries never went up more than 10% a year. So that avoids the big massive bump, but yet over time, our supervisors will get caught up to that average. It might take, I don't know, 5 years or more, but it's not a giant leap. And it, it has a little escalator to it that might be acceptable to people. So I offer that as a quasi proposal only because I don't have the other 2 counties and I can't formalize that into a suggestion here.
I have some. I've lived in Santa Barbara County. I've visited Monterey quite a few times from being a kid growing up. Despite them being similar in population, they definitely feel like different counties from us. The ag rural aspects of Santa Barbara are manifestly different than ours. The type of demographics and population that exists there are manifestly different. As far as being a comparable, I think only in population that they are. Solano feels possibly like the closest to what would be most analogous to us. And interestingly enough, they're the lowest on the percentage of the judges' salary. I find it like if we really want to reel this into just being us, we almost have to kind of throw all of this out the window. Granted, there might be some other factors, but it would only be like half of the equation, where we have to have some sort of baseline that is uniquely us that we feel is appropriate. Because if we're doing this current possible average based on most similar or populous counties, that bump that they would get is going to exceed the 10% that Chris had just mentioned as being like, 10% annually or your raise increases. So without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I'm just trying to make sure that, the perspective under which we look at this, it's either we're going full Democratic with bringing in as many counties to average against and relying on that, or we're possibly needing to come up with something that maybe throws out the idea of the Superior Court judges as being some sort of baseline for us to work with.
Go ahead.
I just took a little bit of a different tack on this, and said, okay, they're making, and these are rough numbers. Okay. So, they're making $114,000 a year. Typically a Superior Court judge will make between 2% and 5% on a pay raise. And a Superior Court judge makes, let's say, $240,000. Oh, that's a little high, I think, but not much.
244 according to the paper.
Oh, is it 244?
Mhm.
Okay, my mistake then. So they make 244,000. So I don't do math in public very well, but nonetheless, at 114,000, if you took the high end of the typical raise, that would be 5%. That would put them at about 120,000. That's about 50% of a Superior Court judge. So rather than jump over a lot of ant mounds, which I would support. I mean, I get it, what we're trying to do here. We could say somewhere between 50 and 55% would give them a typical pay raise associated with a Superior Court judge for their next salary cycle. And that would bring them to about 120,000 in compensation. And we set it there, and the Superior Court judges, when they get their raise, that generates the raise that we give to our supervisors in the future. So we really, at that point, could be talking about relatively small numbers in terms of cost to the county. So I would say 50 to 55%, and we call it a day.
Yeah.
I'm in the same area, in the same space, and I kind of disagree on Monterey. I spend a lot of time in Monterey. But I thought we were only looking at those counties as a frame of reference, like what they were saying, to determine what percentage we're looking at. I think the clean and simpler we are, the better off we're going to be. So if we arrive at a percentage of that judge's salary, I can be supportive of that. And I just thought we were looking at the other counties as a way to determine what percentage we were going to arrive at. Because that way it gives us our own county the authority to determine how much those increases are going to be every year.
Yeah.
Or whenever they're evaluated.
So I agree. I only use what was provided to us with those 4 counties.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with Dan. Obviously, even if we took the lowest number of 63% for those 4 counties, that's still going to be a $40,000 bump in pay instantly. We have to look at the electorate that has to approve this. And that's going to be the problem. I think trying to clean this up, not using the formula we have, excuse me, and using the judge's salary should, I would think, be simpler for the county people in particular, because all they have to do is look up what are the judges making and take a percentage and boom, it's done. They don't have to be looking at 3 different counties' figures every year. And so, I mean, that was part of the process, is to simplify it. I think I'm more in line with Dan's proposal as far as a percentage. I think that I don't think we would get away with 63%. 50% gives them a little bit of a bump now. I also look at well, I'm District 5, right? I know what my supervisor does for this county, and I know that she expends vast amount of time governing a huge amount of property, right? Real estate. I look at the salary that she gets and go, yeah, she probably deserves more than that, because she's got a whole lot of stuff to deal with. I don't know how the smaller geographic areas, District 3, 4, 2 is a little bit rural as well. I don't know how their workload goes. I don't know, I can only assume that if we divided all this up by population, regardless of the amount of real estate that's covered, it's still the amount of population that's being governed. Although in the smaller areas, the supervisors probably have, I'm not saying this as any slight, less to do, because there are more cities involved that have their own jurisdictions. So anyway, having said all that, doesn't make a bit of difference. I'm kind of leaning towards what Dan says. I think using this formula makes it simple for everybody. I think it's a formula that doesn't go away. It's going to be there every year. And it still gives our supervisors a basis. They might get a little pay raise right now, but it'll give them a more steady basis going forward. My thoughts.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I also agree that using a percentage of the salary simplifies it, takes it away from a rather meaningless comparison with the method that we currently have, where it's not really within our control. We're dependent on what Nevada County does, and I don't like that. Coming up with counties to compare, there's a whole myriad of things besides population. There's budget to look at, the number of incorporated cities, the unincorporated population versus the incorporated, and number of special districts, which I'm not proposing to go there, because I think we can come to something. I did the calculation, and currently they're at 46.94% of what judges make. And if we increase that to 50%, it gives them a 6.5% pay raise. And and I think that if we try to do two things at once, I think, two things being change the methodology and give them a substantial raise, I think that you're gonna have a big problem with the public. So I would propose we change to the judge's salary and the percentage be 50%. And in the future, if somebody wants to take a run at running it up, then all they have to do is just change that percentage from 50 to whatever they want to do. I don't agree with the limitation on 10%. I think whatever happens statewide, if judges are getting big increases, it's because something that we can't quite imagine is happening. And I think then you'd have to say up to 50% and allow for it to be less. And I'd rather not do that. I'd rather say it's 50%. 50% is what it is. I also think we ought to clarify in whatever we're doing, because I don't know where or if it's clarified anywhere. I assume that the benefit package that the Board of Supervisors get is the same as the general employees. Is that true?
Yeah, I would defer to human resources for that.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I don't think
It was
it
pretty
is.
good.
Yes, for the most part, like for health, dental, vision coverage, it wouldn't be the same for any like additional special compensation. It's typically just whatever is within.
Yeah, but
that's
we
defined.
have this approximate maximum benefits package of 77,000, and I had assumed that was because they get what the employees get.
Correct, active employees, but not necessarily in retirement. It's
But yeah,
a little bit
active
different for
employees.
retirement.
And I would propose that we include that so that it's specific, right now. They get it because they get it, not because it says they get it. You know what I mean? Does it say, is there anything in the charter that says that they get the benefit package of a regular employee?
It does in the code, it mentions what the board would have
So
available
they
to
passed
them,
it
but
in
not,
there in the code.
but not by the charter.
Anyway.
And
It was just
sometimes-
a thought,
Yeah.
I'm not married to it.
Correct, right. And those can change each year depending on what's offered to county employees.
I like where we're headed. I agree with the percentage of the judges. I agree with that shift. I think we can own that to come to agreement. I was higher on the percentage based on the comparables than I think most of you. Which it's Christmas time. I want to be generous. I don't know, but
Look, I'm sorry.
oh, you weren't done?
I
I'm sorry.
had one more thing that
Yeah,
you just
go-
reminded me of. I
Okay.
apologize for going backwards here.
Yeah.
I look at Sacramento County and the supervisors basically govern one gigantic city. I mean, because they've allowed county development to be everywhere. And that makes their job I think, a whole lot bigger than Placer County supervisors. Because most of our population is within cities. I want most of our population to stay within cities. And I don't want to pay our supervisors anywhere near what Sacramento County gets, because I think that they've got a much bigger workload. And I would rather anyway, so I just wanted to add that extra piece.
I get it. I was at 60% just in my own little world.
62?
60.
60.
Yeah. And I'm putting myself in the position of the voter. I don't know how aware the voter is of increases and but if our methodology is looking at counties, comparable counties, and really this is the lowest one that we're off. I mean, that I think would convince a voter. I don't know that I know the 50% allows for a smaller raise, but in my opinion, we are subject to other counties right now and what they do, which could cause a massive raise. And so we haven't limited the raises before this time. And if Nevada County decided to make a pay raise, then that would have a huge impact on our supervisors. So much greater than perhaps 10%. And so I think the rationale behind the decision would be in the seat of a voter. 60% doesn't seem too large with what we're seeing. I don't see anyone really that low.
There's one other county that was listed, it was at 50%.
Yeah.
Salary.
I think the benefits package is, I mean, considering at least
Yeah.
on the data that we have limited wise, it's 2 to 3 times better
It is, yeah.
than anybody else's. And so even if we're on the low end of the percentage against a judge, I think it's still quite appealing.
Why do you believe that? I don't know that I agree with that. Why do you think the benefits package is that much greater than others?
The
Because
attachment
it says right there, 77,000
Oh,
compared to
sorry, yeah.
24,000 or
Yeah.
45,000.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Compared to our
it's,
neighbors.
yeah, at least what we're compared against currently, you know, our package is substantially better.
With what we see.
So your
Yeah.
60% is a 27.8% increase in salary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about, first of all, they have to recommend that this be placed on the ballot.
Right.
So essentially, they are voting for a pay raise here.
Exactly.
And so if we give them a 27% bogey, I'm concerned that they will say, you know, that's just too much for people to swallow.
Mhm.
So we're gonna keep doing it the way we're doing it.
Yeah.
And look, I think my supervisor works pretty hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she got a pretty good pay raise last time. And she ran 4 years earlier. And, you know, so she wants a job, and so do all the supervisors. So I don't think I don't think we need to give them a bump that may make it very difficult for them to even approve it going on the ballot, and then subsequently may make it difficult for voters to vote. So that would be my concern, Nathan.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly respect your views on it, and we can, you know, have to do a vote on it, stuff like that, but that would be my concern.
Nathan,
I understand.
just from an optics standpoint, you know, just hearing of the unemployment situation that's going on and people looking for jobs and others going on strike for more money, I just think that the way we're going through this discussion is very helpful, because it would be hard to swallow that 67% increase, and this going to the voters in the way that, at a time where things are not all that great.
And you know, I agree with you, Nathan. I'd like to be generous too.
Yeah.
But I think just the reality, I'm agreeing with Dan, is that the reality is the supervisors first off have to agree to this, which doesn't really look that good for them. And the electorate has to approve it. And I just, when I look at what it took to even get the pay package that we have, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those supervisors were frozen 35 grand a year for, I don't remember how many years. It was ridiculous, you know? So, I think to be more modest still gives them a pay increase, but at least now it establishes that they are going to have, they have an established base that we're going to work off of, and the pay raises are going to be established also. I don't know, it just seems like that 50% number seems something that it's still, I think, could be swallowed by all.
I totally agree with that. And as given the data that we had gotten from Ben earlier, like they can expect that it'll be increasing 2 to 4% per year, possibly a little bit higher on, you know, special circumstances. But to me, I think that seems very rational for at least the voter base that would otherwise be installing these.
From an HR perspective, when this goes forward to the board, you know, you're obviously going to be asked for your views. Are we missing something, or would you be comfortable with this, with supporting this recommendation? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I mean, you're not going to go in there and say this is a crazy idea, right? I mean, it's reasonable, right?
I want to be very sure.
I mean, I don't want you to be careful. You got to tell us what you think.
Well, I mean, certainly the methodology is in line with what other counties are doing, and we look. So I think we would probably be a neutral instead of providing a recommendation for or against it, but we could certainly say that it aligns with what other agencies are doing. We would kindly request, if there is gonna be another charter committee, and the committee does decide to go with that option, let us just go at least do a little bit more final research on some fine tuning with additional language around it. Like, for example, if you notice, that salary, even though they tie it to judges, depends on the day they do the looking at it. Some look at it like in June or January. That way you're not constantly having to keep updated at the moving target that could be judges. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
know every year
That's
we're
a good
gonna go to
point.
this,
Yeah.
whatever that date is. So we would just kindly recommend that we would, if there's gonna be another meeting, we would go
At
look
the
at some
time
of
of
those.
contract, yeah. Budget cycle.
And I'm sorry, and if I'm not mistaken, Nathan, you're gonna have an opportunity, when it's presented to the board at the Board of Supervisor meeting, so there may be an opportunity to share a little of the rationale behind what's not written in the proposal that goes before the voters, so that those participating in the meeting will get an understanding as to why we're doing this.
Correct. In
Yeah.
addition to the staff report, there will be a
Yeah.
presentation
Yeah.
where we'll invite the charter committee to have some comments
Right.
as well.
Yeah, so you will have an opportunity.
But I don't think we just want to mention with that too, if any of you attend the board meeting, you're only allowed to speak at that board meeting as an individual member of the committee. If there is an interest in having someone speak on behalf of the committee as a whole, you can totally do that, but that would require a vote. And it would be something that you'd need that vote before somebody could do that.
Yeah, and if I'm just recalling our past experience, and I think it was actually the chair, Dave Butler, that actually represented, and he was specifically called upon by the Board of Supervisors.
Right. And in that instance, he can speak as the
As
chair,
chair,
but just
right,
not on behalf of the
Exactly,
committee.
exactly.
Just have the option.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option.
Yeah.
Just comment on the 50%. Supportive of where we're headed. I think we're arguing a little bit over some minor details, but they're important details. 50% is not much of a bump, and it's very restraining over time. We were not going to, it's unlikely those judicial salaries are gonna make big leaps. They're gonna go incremental. And 50% of an incremental leap, I think the county and the complexity of these jobs is gonna outpace that very quickly over the next decade. And this is a big deal, right? We don't do this very often, even if they opt to go to it. My personal preference would be to go to 55 because it gives the Board of Supervisors a little bit of cover there to decide. They can go, they can drop it down to 50, but what they're not going to be able to do is go, that commission did some really good work. Let's make it higher than they did.
Yeah.
So I personally would prefer to give them a little bit of latitude. I'm very comfortable with the 55%. I would even be comfortable with the 60% pay level, given everything we talked about.
Yeah.
And my preference would be to give them the opportunity to dial it back if they want to. Otherwise, they're kind of constrained.
Or you can transition the increase such that it's not initially as onerous as it would be if you went straight to 55. You can do it over a number of years.
You could keep the only reason I recommended that cap at 10% was I'm not concerned about judicial salaries leaping that much in the future.
Right.
It was the initial leap, and
Yeah.
you could still put that in there as a recommendation that,
Yeah,
I think that probably gets lost from an optics standpoint, but who wants to be campaigning on this? But oh no, it's a big leap, but it's not more than 10%. That probably gets lost, but
Yeah.
that's my suggestion, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy with where we're going.
So I do have a question. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I was hoping we were gonna wrap this one up tonight. Now, in light of what HR asked, is it possible for us to wrap this up and include details later as to the fine tuning?
Yeah.
Is that something we can do?
Yeah. I
Ben
think
and
so.
Clayton?
Yeah, that's certainly within the committee's discretion. You would just want to be clear as to what direction is provided to HR and the limitations to it.
So would that be another public meeting? Is that required?
So I think we have an item on the agenda for additional meetings, but in the instance that you wanted to provide direction on this, and that were to be the final direction in terms of no further direction from the committee, you could certainly do that. You would just want to put whatever parameters are in based on what you've heard from HR in that motion so that the direction is clear.
okay.
We'll decide at the end. We'll decide at the end if we want another meeting and if that's needed.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of today.
Because if I'm not mistaken, HR was making a recommendation based on the mechanics of implementation, right? Of I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like if Clayton, if I'm hearing what Clayton is saying, if you provide us direction, say at 55% or 60%,
Mhm.
and that is solid, but you leave like the annual effective date
Yes.
to be determined by HR, and we'll pick
Yeah.
the best date in the
Yes.
year, that makes
Yes.
sense, if you're willing to give us that authority,
Yes.
then I
Yes.
think we could call it wrapped up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Then I'm willing to make a motion.
Alright.
Do we want to do that now?
Can I have
Oh, sure.
one more? So I said I didn't like the not to exceed 10% and because it would be up to. But on the other hand, maybe that provides us with a little bit of wiggle room. So I think I like your.
It's a ceiling, not a floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me understand. So if it was 55%, that would be 17.1% increase. But if it said not more than 10%, then they'd have to get there in 2 years.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
at a maximum, they'd
Yeah.
get there in 2 years. So the most they could take so they'd be allowed, so we'd write it, so it was up to 55%,
Or not to exceed,
Not to
but
exceed.
not to exceed
10%.
10% in any year.
not to exceed 10%.
And then,
Oh.
and so in the first
see
year,
that.
they could take 10% and then they could take the rest of the bite the next year.
Practically speaking, this is only going to apply in the first 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a good way to spread it out.
Yeah,
Again, we get a little more complicated on the ballot where people go, sounds
Well,
like they're
yeah,
gonna make
but
$4
if
million.
the opposition comes forward and said they're asking for a 17% increase. No, we haven't authorized that. It's up to and not more than 10%, I mean,
I'm telling you, charter committees across the state are gonna be doing this.
Oh, yeah, we are setting the standard.
Anyway, so Dave, I wanted you to hear that before you made your motion. Go ahead.
Okay, well, you just made it more freaking complicated.
Come on, Dan.
Yeah, so let's see.
See if you like, if you choose
I,
the right percentage.
huh?
Let's see if you choose the right percentage.
It was 55% not to exceed 10% total compensation, right? So let's see if I can get something right here. Per year. You ready, Clayton?
Yeah, and I can take a shot at it if you give me the
Well,
percentage.
both you go, he's primed up, so I move that the Charter Review Committee recommend to the Board of Supervisors that we change the Board of Supervisors compensation formula to reflect a payment of 55% of a Superior Court judge's salary annually, and that no annual pay raise will exceed 10% in any given year. And that the pay dates and other details specific to HR will be determined by HR before the proposal goes to the board.
The effective date.
yeah.
Not
annual-
paid. There we go.
annual
The effective date.
Effective date.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say, I don't think that was bad.
That's
pretty
No, that was pretty good.
I want to amend
That's
it.
pretty-
I want to amend it.
Oh, for
I
crying
want to insert the words up to.
Up to,
Yeah, you had, it'll
Right,
be 55%, and I think it should be up to. Because of the maximum 10% limitation means they're not gonna get 55%. They're gonna get less than 55%.
Well, you'd write an exception to that, not to exceed 10%.
Right.
The
So they
voters are
get
gonna,
55%. That's their formula, not to exceed 10% of their annual prior
All
year
right,
salary.
if you think it works.
The 55 has to, that's what they get,
What did you?
subject to
Let's
the
hear-
10%.
the
Let's hear-
public digesting that element.
I mean, I can repeat what I got. Ben typed it though. You may be
I
better.
think I have it verbatim. I can do my best. Let's see. Well, you say it and then we'll have Clayton comment on
There
it.
you go.
So what I have, the proposal is the Charter Review Committee recommends to the Board of Supervisors to change the Board of Supervisors compensation formula to reflect a payment of 55% of a Superior Court judge's salary annually. No annual pay raise will exceed 10% in any given year, and that effective date and other details specific to HR will be determined by HR before the proposal goes to the Board of Supervisors.
We said, that they get a payment. The first payment, I think, should probably say annual salary instead of payment, right? They're not getting a payment, they're getting an annual salary. The payment details are handled by the county,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anybody opposed
Yeah.
to that?
No.
This
that's fine.
is,
It's
this
the
is
evaluation.
Dan's motion, so he's
Yeah,
gotta change it.
So,
Some
let's take some comments first.
clarification.
It's up to the committee.
Well, go-
I would
please.
propose we allow HR to comment.
Go ahead and make your change if you think it's right with,
So,
is it a payment or is
as
it a salary?
discussed, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yes.
We typically would be assessing salary increases, not necessarily a payment.
Yeah,
If
okay.
that helps.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
change we just made. That's the change we just made.
Okay.
And I think we might need some clarification on the one time, at least on the first increase, if we're getting up to the 55%, that may be exceeding, of course, the 10%. So then if we don't get to if we are applying the 10% cap, then they wouldn't be at the 55%.
Right, it would be capped.
It would be capped. It's like a discount on the
It'll
55.
take 2 years, probably 2.5 years before that 55% achieved.
Thank you.
Which seemed to be that's I think a good idea.
The only question I need for clarification is probably from HR is if there's a salary increase and we're getting closer to that 55, and then there's a COLA on top of that, would we apply a COLA or an adjustment on top of the 10% trying to get closer? Because that might take 3 years to get there.
We don't use COLA.
Well, there's pay increases naturally, but I
It
don't,
would come through the judicial
No,
salary.
there's not.
okay,
Yeah.
so there's,
But next year, if the
No,
judges
good.
are making
Right.
250, they're gonna get 55%
on
of 250, capped at 10%,
I'm
not
good.
greater than 10%.
I think the only thing we were trying to clarify, maybe you answered it, was just initially, say this thing passes the charter, initially, would we set them at the 55%?
Yes.
And then from there on, you're capped at 10%?
No,
No.
Or
it's-
immediately at the beginning? you're
Yeah.
capped?
10%.
They get 55%.
Okay,
Think of it this way, you get 55%, but then their salary's discounted to not exceed a 10% growth from the prior year. So every year that's true, but after 2 or 3 years, the 10% is no longer gonna apply because they
They
caught
catch
up
up, yeah.
to the 55%. So their salary is 55% of a judge's salary, capped at it, but they cannot exceed 10% growth in any given year.
Right.
okay, thank you.
Right. So it's first clause and second clause is the way I would see that from.
While I do agree with that, I think that being well understood by the voting public is it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge. They're gonna
Yeah.
say they're getting
100%.
17%.
The worry I have is the 10%. I mean, I understand what
Yeah,
we're doing, but
exactly,
they're
yeah.
gonna go, we're giving them a 10% pay raise.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
gonna be on the posters and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and that's crazy.
It needs to be written so they don't think they're getting 10% above the 55% each year.
Yeah, well,
So that's important too, because
if we could, let's read the motion.
Yeah,
Let's
read
read
it
the
back so
motion and
everyone
see if we're gonna vote.
Oh, no.
Just read the motion and see if we
Setting
get a
them up to
second.
fail.
Okay. So the motion is the Charter Review Committee recommends to the Board of Supervisors to change the Board of Supervisors compensation formula to reflect an annual salary of 55% of a Superior Court judge's salary. No annual pay raise will exceed 10% in any given year, and that effective date and other details specific to HR will be determined by HR before the proposal goes to the Board of Supervisors.
that's good.
Second.
Well done.
Wait a minute,
We have a first and a second.
I have a proposed amendment though. Somewhere in there, it should say, when you go to start the 10%, can you say except however? Read it with an except however in there.
So right now it says no annual pay raise will exceed 10% in any given year.
Yeah, if it said except however, no pay raise will. That
You
that
could
makes
say in
it
no
clear
case.
that you don't get 55.
Can't
if
change it,
goes
right,
over.
Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
And I would,
No case.
I'd like to amend the,
Motion.
motion.
You're gonna
Thank you.
accept the amendment?
Yeah, right, accept the amendment as stated.
Can we,
It's just a clarification.
Yeah.
You want me to read it one last time?
Why not?
Here's the fourth time.
One caveat
It's not real good right now, Ben.
is that
Yeah.
Einer cannot amend it.
Okay, so the motion is the Charter Review Committee recommends to the Board of Supervisors to change the Board of Supervisors compensation formula to reflect an annual salary of 55% of a Superior Court judge's salary, except however, no annual pay raise will exceed 10% in any given year, and that effective date and other details specific to HR will be determined by HR before the proposal goes to the Board of Supervisors.
That's the motion.
Is this-
Do we already have a second?
We had a second.
Well, he's got to say it again.
Second.
Okay, we have first and second to do a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 You guys have switched the first one was
We
an
went to
aye,
yes.
and now we're
Well, I
doing
was off
yes.
The lead of the first
Okay.
person.
Yes.
I followed aye.
Okay.
That's tough.
Stay consistent here with our exception.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you have a yes?
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
Yeah, I said yes, yes. Okay, we're gonna go to the second item. Discussion, and I'm just
Good
gonna
work.
say, after we get through. the next- Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Once we get these two, we'll take a break, okay? And so, this next one's performance-based metrics. And, let's move to our discussion with this. I think we have what we need. What are our thoughts on this as presented and described in the report as a recommendation for the Board of Supervisors?
I think we ought to go forward with it. It's whatever they think they have already. It just needs to be more transparent.
Mhm.
Can't have the amount of feedback that we get from the public about. Yeah, you guys say that you're tracking this type of stuff, but why aren't we getting access to it?
Hmm.
For all the granular details that would otherwise suffice the public, that's what sort of teeth are needed in performance-based metrics for satisfying, I think, what our inquiry is here, at least as far as the recommendation goes to the board, because that's what the way it's currently crafted is to be like, hey, thank you for doing that. And we're not really directing them to say, you need to be more granular and much more forthright in your publishing of the elements of those performances.
So you agree with this or not agree with?
Yeah, or do you want to amend this to?
Yeah, this statement here, the draft language.
I want it to say, besides having made significant strides in incorporating PBMs into its budget documents, et cetera. However, there are opportunities to expand their use across county operations to enhance transparency and accountability, such as publishing of in-progress projects and their accomplishments or elements of the performances that they're trying to measure in the first place, except instead of it just being at the end after it's already done, the in-progress elements of
Formative,
performance, yeah,
formative.
excuse, formative.
You're saying formative progress, so in the middle of.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
yes,
No. Not just summative, but like in the process,
Yeah.
updates,
correct.
benchmarks. Okay.
So this is what I got, and I might need some help clarifying it. So that we're looking at the draft language on page 4. That second paragraph after accountability would say, comma, such as publishing of in-process projects and in-process elements, and that's where it kind of trailed off. I didn't.
Yeah, anything that communicates to them as Chair Herzog just said, the formative part of in-progress projects for performance that can be published to the public.
So can we have a little discussion on that? I don't know exactly what that means, because if what's provided is a regular schedule for when reports are done. Are you saying that they need to be done more frequently? Or,
Well, let's use TGI as an example, the
I
gathering
don't know
in,
what that is.
the gathering in.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that is funds that go from the county to what is effectively a nonprofit that's attempting to build out help for the needy. And they have a certain amount of beds that they've allocated or say that they're going to make available for this project. And therefore, we know what the end result for what the performance will look like, but we want to be able to see the in-between on how they're spending their funds in order to accomplish it. So how are they
So
incrementally
is that
making that
monthly?
progress?
Is that every 6 months? That's what I'm trying to get to. Because if we're saying in progress, formative updates is what I'm getting at, how often are you expecting it?
Yeah, good question.
I would think that the reasonable time frame for that would be quarterly,
Quarterly?
because it's probably too much to do a monthly, but I think every 3 months quarterly is reasonable.
So I'm gonna read something here. I think that might capture what we're doing. You can tell me if I'm wrong. As you said, to enhance transparency and accountability, comma, by publishing formative reports quarterly and summary reports for such projects. Such projects are what have been mentioned above.
Thank you. Yes,
You go through that one more time. I didn't
Sure.
get it all.
So we're at the end of the second paragraph,
Yeah.
right? Comma, by publishing formative reports quarterly and summary reports for such projects.
So we're asking the staff
Exactly.
across all of the Placer staff to publish on a quarterly basis reports.
track how the money that they hand out is being used.
But that wasn't what we got feedback on. When I remember the feedback that we got from the public was in regards to progress that is being made, not transactional activity. The feedback that we got was,
Transparency.
no, well, I wrote it down. The feedback that we got was, she said, she wanted to know that what we're doing is improving or getting better or not getting better. And so if we're saying we're only going to be tracking how the money is being spent, that's a different request.
What this language does to me is it would require the county clerk's office to come out with, let's assume your quarterly scenario, with performance metrics of how they're doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Clayton's gonna have to do it finally. And
Yeah.
Ben's gonna have.
I would favor that.
Yeah. I mean, we're asking, we're asking, this is no small ask.
Yeah.
This is a
I don't
major,
dismiss that,
this is a major,
Yeah.
major ask.
but given the feedback we've gotten from the public, this is the type of transparency that they're wanting.
Well, I
It
think,
was not like that.
I think there's an interest in having certain types of government funds understood, like you're mentioning TGI, so you're kind of going down that and you talk about money that goes out, right? So contractual type of grants and things like that. That's very different than what I'll loosely say the line staff are doing in a day-to-day basis to perform their duties, whether it's, you know, child support activities or planning commission activities or transportation maintenance activities. You know, to imply that all of them have to come up with PBMs, and I'm sure a lot of them do, that's recommended.
Okay.
But so I think we really need to narrow what we're trying to do here. And then my second question is, I'm not sure why that's a charter issue. This seems more like an operational issue coming out of the.
Remember, this
CEO's
is
office.
just a recommendation to the
Again,
board without.
recommendation, but we're a charter commission and not a management consulting committee. So
I
a little bit there.
I would just say that, I think it's a bit of a reach to say that this is something the public is interested in. I too am part of the public, and I can tell you I will never read this.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a chance in the world I will ever, except Clayton's. And so, I will track that like a dog. But other than that, I honestly, I mean, there are state laws, there are auditors, there are people that watch where the nickels and dimes go. There is no doubt that corruption could eke its way in, and we could, have a mess on our hands at some point or another. But I mean, there are people who are responsible for making sure that we're spending our money correctly and that we're executing our contracts effectively and efficiently. And I mean, I spent my whole life in a bureaucracy that was the most massive thing on the planet, frankly. And I can tell you that when people started to do this kind of stuff, like Dan, write down what you did today.
Yeah.
It's the biggest waste of time on the planet. No one reads it, and no one cares.
I'd like to know what I'd love 3 examples of what a performance-based metric is. I've never had one.
Yeah, I think what I heard, and I think her name was Cheryl.
Yes.
What she was talking about was if there's progress being made for all the money that is being spent, we'd like to know about it. That's the way I understood it in my paraphrasing. Progress being made.
On projects that are expending funds. So we're limited to.
I got the impression that she said if our county is doing something good or bad, they would like to know about it. It wasn't to the degree of tracking the dollars that are being spent, what they're being spent on. And I think honestly, the reason why I was supportive of something going to the supervisors on this was, you know what, we should be tooting our horns if we're doing something great. We should be letting the public know that, you know what, we did all these great things in this particular area. And I see it as like an end of year report. That's why I asked about the timing. Because sometimes it takes time to show that you've made improvement.
Yeah. I
And
wrote down
to
what they
mandate a
said.
quarterly report, I think is excessive.
I think it's reasonable without things just being lost in the interim. Because as I wrote down the terminology that were made in the comments on various meetings,
Yeah.
one from our July 29th and our September 29th meeting. Terms used principally were transparency,
Yeah.
needing accountability, the ability to do audits and checks and balances.
Yeah, and there's transparency in there. There's accountability in there.
Then what?
But we got finance. I mean, we got
Yeah,
budgets. I
yeah.
mean, we got
But
auditors.
so if somebody's inquiring today and they want to know what's going on, that they can't get that data. It's not being publicly disseminated.
I don't think that an average resident in Placer County is gonna come to any department and say, what are you doing today? I think that they would like to know that we're making progress and that we're improving and we're making the county a better place for all of us to live. But coming in and asking, no corporation could do that.
If I'm hearing this correctly, I think that's less of a concern. You're aiming more of, what is when the county's granting money out and essentially asking for a service to be delivered on behalf of the taxpayers, whatever that is, we should be able to have some accountability for that, particularly given that presumably that contract is to non-governmental employees. So the oversight is now distributed.
Yes.
And the accountability gets distributed versus it's a lot easier, to find out for the county to track its own employees.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
And of course, contracts tend to generate these kinds of questions, particularly when we're talking social services and a few others, right? We're not talking about how many Post-it notes we bought this year. We're talking about real equation and I think if we're gonna aim at that, that's what this should say. I'm a little personally, from a voting standpoint, I'm more interested in that as a recommendation, but I would also note, again, had a little experience with this. If a contract is let out and it doesn't include performance-based requirements, the county can't come back in and say, oh, by the way, we want you to start reporting on a quarterly basis. Every contractor out there is gonna go, time out.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. Let's make an amendment to the contract.
Right.
Because you're now gonna have to pay for that staff
Exactly.
again.
Yeah.
And the consequences of that. So let's be cognizant. There's some serious change that goes on to this if this is to actually be taken to heart by the board of supervisors and carried out.
Yeah,
I'm
I
also-
totally agree with you in that the general performance metrics of county workers themselves is fine as it is, but the public-private relationships where public funds are being distributed is where greater transparency and public in performance-based metrics could
But
be.
isn't that?
Chair, if I
impacted-
could,
Oh, go-
at least on the contract piece, I just want to provide some background on the county side of things, just so you can see kind of how it works in practice.
Yeah.
Any time that the county is contracting for services or products with an outside private party, if that amounts over 100,000, it goes to the board in open session. That includes the contract and the scope of work, and most oftentimes those contracts have a scope of work that's tied to certain milestones that need to be done in order to receive that next payment. Anything under 100,000 is allowed to go to the purchasing manager. The purchasing manager has authority to enter it. Department heads only have authority up to $5,000. So, and that's basically just day-to-day operation type stuff. So, yeah, I wanted you to at least have that acknowledgement, because at least over 100,000, that does go to the public as it is right now, and anyone can comment on it, and you can see those contracts along with the scope of work on any board agenda.
So.
And maybe one more thing to add really quickly, on an annual basis, through the adoption of the budget, each department has to identify operational goals and milestones throughout their department and the objectives to meet those goals that then actual funding in the budget document is applied to. So there is that connection between performance measures, goals, and funding that again goes to public session through the annual adoption of the budget.
I remember I was chair of the planning commission, and I asked the planning commission at the end of the year to produce a report.
Mhm.
They did a really good job. It was really neat
Yeah.
to see all the progress that they had accomplished over that year. I think that's generally done. When I read this, I assumed it was not about county employees, but was applied to external contracts. So that I had no intention in reading Clayton's day-to-day, accomplishments, and I wouldn't read that. But
It's riveting.
if it's not clear that this is more transparency associated with public dollars going out to NGOs or, partnerships with private organizations, I would hope that it would be.
Well, second paragraph alludes that it's more than that, is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. That's why I asked the
Right.
question.
Yeah, and that's important because
Yeah.
I assumed. And so
Yeah,
I would not want this to be applied to or interrupt the CEO's office and their monitoring of
Yeah,
employees and
yeah,
progress and professional development and goals. But I think the transparency of public dollars spent
Yeah.
on an annual basis with an update, formative, because most of these contracts are multi-year.
Yeah.
Most of the time, this is happening over several years.
Mhm.
Whether it's quarterly, I think an annual report of progress
Yeah.
from contracts
Yeah.
above $100,000
yeah,
Um,
I like that.
is important.
Can we further focus that on, I don't think we necessarily want to hear about, how many pieces of paper were purchased, right? Are we looking more
Yeah.
for service contracts, maybe in
The goals associated
The
with the
goals-
we're
Because the area-
we're not looking for
The air-
material contracts, we're looking for service contracts.
Because
And
the first,
That's a
the
good point.
housing was the area that Cheryl talked about.
yeah, and again, for example, the county
Toner
almost,
replacement, yeah.
the county almost certainly hires legal services, I would
Mhm,
imagine, right? Clayton's got to get some help somewhere.
We do some of it in-house. We do what we can in-house, but yes, there are legal
But-
services.
So there's
contracts,
specialized legal
specialty areas.
services
Yeah.
that might not, we may not want. I want to hear lawyers talk about their performance contracts.
Yeah.
Right? But So is there a way to narrow this a little bit to help the
Yeah.
Board of
Yeah.
That
Supervisors
would be
appreciate?
good. That would be good.
Maybe it'd be in that last paragraph off of the first sentence. Throughout county operations that involve third parties or
You said
you
the
know.
last paragraph?
Yeah, where
Where are you?
The final paragraph of the
According-
draft language says accordingly, the Charter Review Committee suggests the Board of Supervisors consider expanding the use of performance-based metrics throughout county operations, period, currently. And that's where I think it could possibly be reworked, that county operations that extend into public dollars or funds being used by second or third parties.
Well, you have to work on paragraph number 2 too, because it says BMs into budget documents, government programs, contract administration, housing element reporting. That's a lot. So
So to be clear, sorry to cut you off there, to be clear, those are already being monitored and tracked.
Oh, okay, okay.
performance-based.
Okay, okay.
Right, right.
So it implies that contract administration is already being tracked.
Correct. Going back to what Clayton mentioned, a
Yeah.
lot of these contracts have within their agreement baked
Yeah.
in performance
Okay.
indicators and requirements.
Okay.
But I that's where I think,
You just.
yes, you do have something. It says hit a milestone. And somebody says, yeah, we hit the milestone. How did you do it? That's the performance that wants to be measured by the public.
So you're looking for
How is the sausage made?
an annual report. That-
Chairman. Sounds to me
It sounds like you're looking for an annual report.
Yeah, go ahead, Einer.
Oh, I wish I could support you, but I can't.
Okay.
I don't understand a problem here.
Yeah.
That we're trying to solve. I don't know that there's a problem. We've got reporting, we've got
Recommendation.
performance-based measures being activated. And this is not a charter issue. I was fine with the paragraph that says, you should do better.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I'll-
you know, all right, if you want to do that, go ahead, do that. Write a note to the board of
I will-
supervisors, and say you should do better, but to try to layer on something that actually is a make work project.
I will
that
entertain a
accomplishes
motion
nothing,
on this
I
item.
vote no.
A final quick comment here. I just Googled this for the hell of it. AI overview, Placer County produces various annual reports, with the main one being the annual comprehensive financial report detailing finances and audited by CPAs, other key, et cetera, et cetera. It's, annual reports, 2024 Placer County Sheriff's Office, 2024 Placer County, I mean, it's got various agencies. Auditor Controller Office publishes periodic financial reports to provide the general public of an overview of
Let's-
counties, et cetera.
Let's
So-
see where we're at. We just spent some time on this.
Yeah.
Let's see where a motion can land at this point, and let's see what happens.
I vote we drop it. I make a motion that we drop this issue.
I second.
There's a first and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. The motion is if you vote yes or aye, what are we doing today, guys? Okay. Then
Whatever you say.
you're voting to have this be dropped.
Yes.
Aye
Aye
is a
Okay,
drop
got it.
from.
Not a yes.
Yes, means stays.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
He motioned that.
I
this
heard a
be
motion
dropped.
and there was a second. I just. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Oh, it's supposed to be aye.
Aye. Yes, it's the same thing. They're the same thing. They always have to.
Yeah. Legally, either one works, but yeah, if you have a
Aye.
style preference, go ahead.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. Okay, we're gonna move on to, I appreciate everyone's discussion. I think that's an important discussion here, especially considering the public's feedback. So we'll go to the third item that we're gonna discuss, regional housing needs assessment, numbers, ability to rezone properties. We spent some time on that. We had comments on from the public on this. We had some clarification regarding the laws from Clayton. We even spent some time discussing that right after the comment. So let's move to deliberation and discussion and perhaps a motion for this third item.
I wanted to immediately jump on the opportunity when committee member Woodward brought it up earlier, but he says, I think if you put this in front of the public, it'll pass, 75% or so in favor. And I think that the will of the public is what needs to be recognized here. I mean, we're neutering it if we're not trying to put it onto in some way of the charter, because if it's, again, the will of the public to try and put teeth into something that forcibly restricts the supervisors from just running roughshod over how zoning is going to be applied going forward, then I think it's our due diligence to ensure that at least makes it to the board for them to try and either shoot down there or put on the ballot and see how the public reacts.
I believe that, this is a real problem in Placer County. And this goes back to when I was planning commissioner. And I mean, I endured the rezoning meeting. It was brutal and really pitted district against district and supervisor against supervisor. And I am deeply concerned that, first of all, let me just say this. That 3.5 years there, I have great respect for the staff. I think from top to bottom, they did a fabulous job. And the guys that stood at that podium did an absolutely great job, 99% of the time. But I am concerned that there are some biases in the housing area at this very senior level that are biased towards contractors and developers, and that get us to the point where we do things in Penryn that are clearly, in my judgment anyway, really foolish. So I just want to mention this, and I have this on my phone here. But one of the things I mentioned a couple of meetings ago was that there is a study underway. And Ben actually got some information on this. His report back was that study was going to be outbriefed in November. That has changed. This study is a study about trying to prevent having another meeting on rezoning. Because at the end of that rezoning meeting, I made the motion. In fact, the motion was made. It passed unanimously that we do a study in Placer County to compare. There are counties that are getting us right, to find out what those counties are doing, pull that information in, and then get it done in Placer County and figure out how to get it done. So that study, which was due in February of 2025, has not been completed yet, but will be outbriefed in January to February 2026. And this is from Nikki Strigan. And by the way, Nikki opposed doing this study, as did Chris, the planning director. And that's factual, and it's right off public comment it's in public forum. But anyway, BAE Urban Economics is doing this, what they call Nexus study. A presentation was provided to affordable housing advocacy groups, building industry professionals in September. Feedback indicated that there were issues and stuff like that, but they're working through it. So in lieu of fees, these fees that allow developers to avoid affordable housing in large projects, those kinds of things need to be reviewed and considered. We do have an opportunity and an open door coming up with this study being outbriefed to the supervisors, and I guess the planning commission as well, to try to influence what we're doing in Placer County. In the meantime, I'll tell you, the staff is going to blow this apart when it goes to the board. I personally don't care. We need to get as much energy into this as we possibly can, in my opinion, so that the board is ready when that committee comes, when that thing is outbriefed. Even if this happens afterwards, they need to hear it over and over and over again. So I appreciate what was done, Einar, what you did here. And yeah, it's going to get blown apart by legal. We're going to lose this fight, but I'd say fight it somehow. So that's my opinion.
All right.
Which version did you like best?
On yours?
Yeah.
The real version or the AI version?
Oh, yeah, the chat, I didn't read the chat GPT. 68.
So this issue is something that is fairly new to me. And fundamentally, I don't feel like I have the expertise to be sitting here deciding one way or the other as to how something is zoned or where it should be put. I do know, and I'm no stranger to public comment and participating in it in my previous life. We have the same 3 people voicing concern in one area, 2 are from one area, Penman. And I just have a real problem with making a major decision like this based on that input. Secondly, I feel like when I signed up to come on this charter committee, I felt like I should be thinking in terms of what's best for the entire county, not a specific community. So it just goes against my grain to be supportive of something like this, especially after I've heard all the legal issues associated with it. And Dan, I disagree with you. I think 75% of the community would vote it down. Because these rural areas tend to be small. And you're talking about affecting urban areas where the voters are. And at some point in time, so if we make this proposal the way it is today, you're potentially impacting the urban quote unquote areas in a more dangerous way at the sacrifice.
Not the cities.
Well, I'm just telling you.
Because this is.
Hold on, let me finish. And I think it's gonna get to a point where you have so much going on in these urban areas, you're gonna need to have some way to offload. But you're setting up a scenario where that can't happen. And I just feel like I don't have the expertise to sit here and make a unilateral decision on something that affects the whole county based on 3 people providing input.
Yeah. So this proposal doesn't affect what's happening in Penryn. Because,
Yeah, I think it does.
well, no, because it won't get there in time.
I know, but it would, if it was in place, it would help them.
If it was already in place, but Penryn is the canary in the coal mine. There's a problem there.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to do was set something that was a general guideline that would help the Board of Supervisors have the authority to, or the guts, because I agree with Dan. I think that there've been a real reluctance to go against the developers. Because the developers don't want this in their area, because it doesn't put the best foot forward for their projects to have this stuff included, and so it's getting. So that's how come it's in Penryn, and I think that that's bullshit. I think they should make these developers swallow their responsibilities to include these kinds of zoning areas within their projects as they bring them forward. Anyway, so it isn't going to solve Penryn's problem. And the county can't put it in a city. What it says is the county has to put it into the county developments, and so it doesn't affect cities. It's going to affect where the county is proposing
But
urban development.
the way this is written doesn't say that.
I think it does.
No, it doesn't.
Well, then let's try and have a discussion. So
I'm
that
not
way
in
it does.
favor of it. I have to tell you that right up front.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, so we could have a bigger discussion.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's a large contingency of this entire state of California that is more or less dictated to because of the 2 most populous cities in it, San Francisco and LA. So we're essentially a microcosm of that when you look at it from a county level, saying that, at least from committee member Walker's perspective, that the cities are the ones that are ultimately going to shoot this down because they're the ones that hold all of the population, and therefore we get to dictate to the rural areas that you guys get to get our share of expansion.
So the cities have to do their share too.
Well,
They do.
I think,
Every
is that not the
jurisdiction
crux?
gets- Every jurisdiction gets
Yeah,
their.
exactly, exactly.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but I think we're obviously having a level of disagreement here on how, and I think this is what the root of Einer's language was trying to get at, is protecting the overall character of the established areas of the county and make sure that they're not changed immediately overnight. Obviously, what Penryn or the folks from Penryn have been trying to communicate is that the moment that a 5-story building goes in here, it sets the precedent for what the overall area is about to look like, because it's so vastly different from what the character of Penryn has been established to look like for many decades.
You know, that happens when you locate these in urban areas too.
Exactly.
It's happening in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I'm
trying to say.
getting a multi-story building and we don't have that in our area.
Yeah,
So I can tell you, my neighbors are just as offended as the representatives from Penryn. I'm highly empathetic to that.
yeah.
But you gotta realize this comes across as a little bit like, you know,
Not in my
you guys
back-
gotta pile all
Yeah,
these on top of
exactly.
yourselves and leave us alone out here because we have more land.
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
think
not
it was
sure
trying to get at
sells
that.
politically.
There's been
Across the
something
board.
about the overall transition. Like Roseville allowed and Rockland allowed for their character development to change overnight because they essentially allocated this one big large area to the mall and they wanted everything else to grow around it.
We didn't do this. We may be different than Penryn, but we didn't ask for this. Nobody, I can tell you, none of my neighbors, and I'm pretty sure none of my friends in Roseville ever said, oh yeah, as part of this growth where I get to move into my neighborhood, I would like to have, 3 and 4 story low income affordable housing right next door. That's a universal dislike. I think.
I'm gonna
So,
make a couple comments, and I know this is complicated, and I really rely on the expertise of staff, often the clarity of this question of what can we do, right? Under the charter, what can we do with our authority? What are the options? And I am having a really difficult time figuring out how this topic falls within what we can do. And if we can't speak as one voice on this, it should not come from us. Like if we can't be in alignment of, hey, I want to send this message to the board of supervisors because it's important for them to hear. We can all speak individually there. We can share our thoughts there, and I'd encourage you to, if we don't satisfy your needs here. But at some point, these next couple of minutes, we need to be unified with the voice for this to go through. And so that's kind of what I'm calling at. And I'm not a fan of don't spit here kind of statements, or you can't do this. I'm generally more in favor of, hey, how can we provide options and so or a direction. And so it's a very complicated process. And I know I really rely on staff and Clayton in this particular instance to understand it. And I think they have a difficult time placing this topic under the charter. And so I'm having difficulty. I think they are. And so what can we do here? What can we do in a unified voice?
Are we putting forward recommendations or, I know we had this discussion earlier. And by the way, I agree, this is gonna get shot down. And I hang much more on this study, which is being conducted by staff, which will come forward with staff approaches than something like this. That said, I do believe we need to keep the pressure on the supervisors and the staff to make sure that what they come forward with is effective and makes a difference in the county, because we don't want to keep doing forest-free zones or whatever. So did we agree earlier that we were going to we could put forward comments like this was an issue that is outside of the charter, but was brought forward are we gonna do that? I can't recall.
We're doing that.
We are doing that.
That's my recommendation.
with-
I've
yeah.
stated before, I
Yeah.
don't believe this can be put in the
So,
charter.
so we're doing that with the tax issue, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So perhaps we do that. And it could even be under, somebody's byline and say, look, this is something that was brought up. We found this to be a particular issue. This is the language we proposed. It was viewed as inappropriate for a charter. And so it was not a recommendation, but we wanted the Board of Supervisors to be aware that this was brought forward. Is that something that people would be interested in?
well, I think in the development of the general plan, right, which is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Being
no.
conscious of where these affordable homes are placed is the kind of direction we can provide that I think is important. But I don't know if that satisfies everyone's needs, because I think people have different perspectives on what that recommendation should be.
Well,
I'm preferential to trying to put Einar's language, at least as a formal recommendation to the board, and have them deal with the public's response to having it voted upon. Because that applies a certain level of pressure that will remain going forward at a charter level. And again, like the state did to us with RENA, it's shoot first and ask questions later. You know what, deal with our charter. If you want to take us to court and find out that, it's void as a matter of fact, of law, then test it. But it was obviously the will of the people to put it there because they wanted it. If it got put up for vote.
I wrote it and the reason I wrote it was because I knew how to write it. And there's obviously a lot of folks out there who feel very strongly about it.
Yeah.
But if it's not gonna get anywhere, it might be more effective to include a recommendation. So let me rephrase. I also like the idea of telling the Board of Supervisors that we believe that this is an important issue and that and it should get consideration in their general plan to make sure that they are allocating, that they're designating adequate lands within the general plan to meet their RENA requirements.
Isn't that essentially what RENA is? An allocation of land to meet the requirement? Kind of by definition, that's what it is.
So the RENA numbers are that you have to build a certain amount of them. One of the ways you
The
can do
compliance
that.
with RENA is the allocation of the land.
Right,
Yeah,
I expect in the later housing elements, it will be that you actually have to build it. But in
Yeah.
this housing element, it's, you can rezone a site and
Right.
that's sufficient.
Right.
Well, the county can't build.
They can impose they can impose requirements that the county has to have these numbers built. And then it will be up to the county to figure out how to do that and fund it.
So there are developers who specialize in this
Yeah.
and they will just, there'll be more of them.
Right.
Because they'll be taking
And
advantage of
I think the
state.
county ought to get in front of this and decide where they're gonna be, rather than reacting to things like they've never happened to react to. And, that's, I love to fight, but
Yeah, me too.
but that might be more productive.
I agree with that approach. Give them context on how big of a discussion this obviously was, rather than just putting the language in front of them and saying, deal with it. I think them having as much insight into how much pressure is applied in every avenue in which these folks come here to try and figure out how it can be applied to the charter, just in the same way that they go to the planning commission, just in the same way that they go to the board. There's obviously a resounding a level of pressure that is being applied from all directions, and they're just trying to figure out some way of escaping this top-down legislation that really doesn't speak for us at a county level. It speaks from it at a statewide level. And so
Are we gonna say 3 people? Or is the reason why we're willing to? do
I
this?
I live in a community in
Yeah,
which
but
this
I'm
is
just
a
talking about the-
general.
I'm just talking about the community that has provided us input. Are we gonna say that 3 people equates to that?
I think they speak for a larger coalition
Yeah,
of folks
and they-
because I know them.
And
I-
they
I
should
went-
show up. They
They
should
had
show
a
up.
meeting in Penryn
Yeah,
and I went to it and I think there might have been 1,000 people.
yeah,
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm sensitive to the fact that you weren't present at that,
Yeah.
that rezoning meeting, but I can assure you that there's a lot of people that care. So I guess what I would say is this, my question is this, it sounds like, and I would be comfortable with this, it sounds like we could get to, some level of agreement, maybe not 7-0, but maybe where we say, look, let's put this in as, another attachment similar to the tax issue. And basically the gist of it is to suggest that the board integrate this type of theme or concept into the Placer County General Plan. And then that will go through staff and they will do all of that and it will, conceivably wind up in there in some place, shape or form. I do think you're a little, by the way, I actually read your Chat GPT thing and I like that better. Sorry, Ina. But nonetheless, I do think, yeah, I know. I do think that this is got too much teeth in it, even the Chat GPT thing. And by the way, as Clayton pointed out, they could have built that in Penryn based on the current zoning. It was not done via rezone. So they could build it anyway. They could have built it anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's, I think the point is that they felt pressure from one direction versus the other. The public pressure to say, no, we don't want that one or downscale it to something that's more reasonable would have been heeded by the board. But instead, the board kind of disregarded what the public sentiment was and said, we have to figure out how to apply some numbers. These numbers look great for us at the state level. So we're going to do it. We're going to approve this.
so wouldn't the focus on the developers be a more reasonable approach than the approach that we're trying to take with this? Because from what I'm hearing you guys say, there seems to be the discussion around what the developers are their actions specifically, rather than the legal side of it, which is what we have to do.
It's the options the developers have.
Yeah.
To help meet the requirements or triggering consequential actions in different places.
Yeah.
They just submit an in lieu fee and that ultimately gets them out of
Yeah,
having to
because
be.
this is not helping me at all.
So in lieu fee, or I think there's even land swaps and, there's a variety of things.
So could we, I mean, we'd like to wrap up, and not have another meeting, I take it, but, could we take that Chat GP language or some version of it, and rather than recommend it as a charter amended, ask for it to be somehow incorporated into the general plan?
and
And then it becomes, the word somehow, somehow it becomes, dear supervisors, please do something about this issue.
the only thing I mean, if we were gonna do that, in order to, I think, accommodate more views, which I find pretty reasonable, by the way, is to get rid of the word shall, and probably put the word should in there and recognize that the staff is going to comment on this. The board would have to approve this language, and then they probably would say something along the lines of, this general theme is something we recognize is important to the people of Placer County. We would make a motion that it be, this general theme be integrated inside of the general plan. When you have shall in there, it's pretty darn directive, and that's where you get into problems, and I do agree with that. It's not necessarily just an urban, suburban problem. We need to provide some flexibility, so I could see that.
Is that a motion?
Hold on.
I second.
Which version are you looking at? Are you looking at the chat?
ChatGPT.
Yes,
yeah.
this one.
Oh, wait, you're
Was
looking,
it?
you.
Yeah.
you're-
Sorry,
you're-
right.
Yeah.
Shall, I thought only shows up in the first one.
This is the chat one, that's it.
Oh, I thought, oh, this is Niners?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I heard the
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah.
What?
Good job, dude. Okay, I'm gonna go with,
He
I take
liked
it back.
yours better than ChatGPT.
No, I thought.
Your English teacher did a good
It's,
job.
it's the way it was
Great.
formatted. He
Oh,
thought that
he's
this.
talking about
that
the
this
top
was
paragraph.
So I would
ChatGPT.
dump shall and put should in there.
To protect rural and
Oh.
low density zone regions.
I'm not sure, was that a motion? I know.
No, not yet.
Hold on,
Let me,
hold
let these folks read it.
I tried to make it, I mean,
The,
do we?
the ChatGPT is the bottom one, which is
Oh, okay.
more lengthy.
Oh, it looks like the top one.
That's what I just told him.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Concept.
I-
I don't see how this is addressing the developer concept of what we
That
just
is a
talked about.
huge hole in this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see that here.
Well,
Developer.
No, it's the.
it
point
would
you made
affect the
earlier.
ordinances that they're otherwise relying on, would it not?
Relationships.
How can you say, like, I want to say this because
Yeah.
I understand the attempt here. I respect the
I
fight
don't know.
of protecting rural areas. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah,
But then I don't want to be depressing, but I don't think it has a chance.
yeah, and.
Like,
and
how, you know what I, because I know
Yeah.
what we can, the authority of what you're told often, the planning commission, of course, what you can make a decision on. And, you know, what's defensible in the court.
Yeah.
And because of that, you know, if you put should in there, it provides the wiggle room that
Yeah.
it's useless, right? There's, it's
Mhm.
ambiguous,
Mhm,
and people can do it or not.
mhm.
And so I'm just not a fan of putting things into play
Yeah.
that have no weight and authority either.
So-
I want to protect these areas. My heart goes out to the cities and the rural areas that are forced to do this.
Mhm.
I feel like we're limited with what I know, with what we can do. That's what I'm struggling with.
So,
And I have a
think-
related, oh, go ahead, Mike.
well, I'm trying to figure out which page we're on here. Are we on a page that we're just making this as a recommendation to the board like the other
Yeah.
thing we just did? Or are we on a page where we're trying to institute this as part of the charter?
I thought it was a two-prong approach, both.
Actually, we were discussing it as a recommendation.
That's what I thought, and
Yeah.
that's why from the recommendation standpoint, I mean, it's a recommendation.
Can we
They're
can we
do what they
clarify
want with
something?
it. Yes.
Everything we do is a recommendation. Are
Yeah.
you suggesting it's an informational?
Yes,
recommendation?
exactly. Thank you,
Recommendation.
thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I'll also
believe that-
mention, I think this is what Clayton was suggesting, which is,
Yes.
yeah, he didn't make a recommendation or anything, but that it's more suitable to the planning or to the general plan.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
not,
Yeah,
I don't think
agree
it's
with that.
without
I agree with that.
value. I think that the discussion in front of the board is valuable.
Mhm.
Whether they accept it as something that they would want to forward or modify for the general plan remains to be seen. But I think there's value in bringing this forward to the board. That's
Yeah.
I think informationally, it can be disregarded that much
Yeah,
easier.
yeah.
But the
I
way it's
agree.
written, it doesn't really tell anybody what they need to do. Especially when you hear all the legal side of all of this. Now, if this was something that was specifically directed towards the developers and or what we should do in regards to considering it for the general plan, I can get there. But this is just basically telling them, even which should in there, is telling them where to put the allocation.
Listen,
It's not working with the
we're-
external people.
none of us on here are Clayton. Clayton's,
So I'd like to make a
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay.
So how about the committee, the charter committee, recommends that the board of supervisors incorporate the following into its general plan process.
I like that.
I
There we
Lead
go.
in.
Right, and then we just have, protect rural zoning, this one paragraph.
And something that maybe you guys want to talk.
But, okay, so if we're gonna do this, the last line or two, right, immediately adjacent to land zone by the
Right.
county for urban, suburban, okay. The argument was that those areas have the infrastructure more appropriate than Penrith.
Yes.
Okay. I have this running joke with my wife, there's $10 every time I want to make a point on something, and I'd be willing to put my $10 down. And Penrith probably has more transit than I do where I'm at.
Exactly.
And yet they're putting one of these across the street from our neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
If you have a single bus that swings by, you have more transit than I do.
Mhm.
So my point about this isn't Penryn
Yeah,
versus
that's right.
where I'm at.
Yeah,
Rockford. The point
exactly.
is, just going and dumping it into suburban doesn't address,
Exactly.
we're really, you know,
Yeah, but in theory, I'm sorry to interrupt.
In theory, that's going in
If
my
they're
house.
gonna general plan an area for suburban development, they're hopefully going to plan all the infrastructure that's necessary to support it.
someday, as growth goes and goes and goes, that may be Penryn. Right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
okay,
If
no,
they
I mean,
decided
so-
to have urban development in Penryn, then Penryn should
Yeah,
get
yeah.
this.
Okay, I just, it's still,
Yeah.
I fully appreciate the shall,
Yeah,
should.
yeah,
It doesn't fundamentally change that the
Exactly.
direction is still the same.
that's true.
The direction's still the same, and I don't think it strikes to the heart of the matter, which is, I'm gonna suggest is a little bit more along the lines of what Dan was suggesting about relationships and just how these things go and the
Mhm.
influence of the land brokers, if you will, and I say that very loosely termed, not specifically. And this just shuffles things around the deck. The reality is we all suffer from the consequences of these state policies and none of us like it. And I don't think there's one group of us in Placer County that suffer more than another group. I can appreciate in the rural environments, it feels perhaps it might feel to the rural community more. I've lived in rural communities. I know how raw it feels when somebody imposes. But I can tell you, it feels pretty raw in those suburban areas that get imposed by it as well. And I still don't, this still doesn't get me to what that statement is to the Board of Supervisors, other than there's a lot of animosity about what's going on here, and we'd like to see our Board of Supervisors have a more specific plan that's more transparent and more clear and followed, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what's offensive to me about the Penryn. It kind of feels like it was out of nowhere.
Okay.
So that's my comments about where we're headed, and
All right.
that's what I would need to support.
Yeah,
Let's,
I agree.
we talked it out. And if we can't get, we have a statement here as a header included that you just shared. Let's have someone make a motion and let's see where we're at. Let's see where people are.
If I could real quick, because it's, I think, of a higher level point, I distinctly recall the motion last time. And it was to have Einar's language massaged by Clayton. We're up here debating upon should and shall, and his specialty is dealing with that type of language. And granted, I don't know, was this amended by you at all, Clayton? Like Einar's language?
The recommendation was to massage it so that it could fit into the charter, and I don't believe there's a way you can massage it to fit within the charter. I do think also on the general plan side of things, using a shall here, if it were incorporated word for word into the general plan, would also conflict state law and would likely result in HCD, if not providing an angry letter threatening to decertify our housing element,
right.
potentially decertifying it. So I do think there are ways, if you put a should in there, maybe that gets a little more flexibility. But I do think the housing element
should or a
one
shall
second.
in here.
This would go in the general plan in the housing element, and that ultimately has to be approved by HCD. So to the extent that there's language in here that looks great to the county and the Board of Supervisors feels great with, there is a likelihood in just going through that process that the state is going to reject it.
So here's my motion. My motion is that we include with our final product the following recommendation, right?
Informational
Which is
item?
not for an amendment to the charter.
An informational
It's
item.
just as an informational item.
Okay.
The Charter Committee recommends that the board incorporate into the general plan process. Incorporate the following into the general plan process, : protect rural and low density zoned regions from the county from the encroachment of high density development, which is inconsistent with the character of the local community or zoning of neighboring lands, and shall instead locate high density zoning intended to meet low-income housing requirements within or immediately adjacent to lands zoned by the county for urban suburban residential development.
You said you weren't gonna have a
That
shall.
was a recommendation. There was no shall.
What did you?
There is a
take
shall.
out?
There is-
It was a
You
shall.
read it verbatim.
Use
Yeah.
shall.
Yeah,
No, I struck the board shall.
no,
Oh,
there's
but
another
there's
shall
one
in
in
there.
No, the shall is the one in the middle of the sentence. yeah.
Sorry, we were pointing out that shall too. See that one?
It's in the third line, yeah,
Mhm.
right there.
How about, can we just strike shall and say and instead?
Well, I
Instead,
mean, it's a requirement
Yeah,
either
still,
way,
yeah.
shall.
I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, you'd have to.
Well, but what we're doing is we're recommending that the board incorporate this into its general plan process.
Take into consideration as a priority.
Yes. And
Again, maybe it's not a formal type of law in a sense as much as it is a guideline. I mean, but I have to presume that the planning commission really is trying to be considerate
What
of
if-
a lot of these aspects.
what if we put in the word concept, incorporate the following concept into the general plan process? All right.
From a legal
Died
perspective,
for lack
that's
of a second.
that's better.
Wait, did someone second that?
That was a motion?
That was a motion.
The motion.
Oh, yeah, I'll second that.
We have a first and a second.
I would like to offer an amendment.
Okay.
Yes, good.
So this amendment is an effort to try to get to the idea that we don't address, and we should, I agree, actually, the developer side of this. Because we're really basically trying to tell the county where development should take place, but not talking about whether or not developers are going to step up and actually build there. So I think, and I don't know that I got this right, but something along the lines of ending this with further encourage, and I just jotted this down. So further encourage policies that promote developers building affordable housing sufficient to meet RENA inside of Placer County. So something along the lines of kind of shifting the focus to say, not only do we want these places built where it's sensible, which I think we try to do in Placer County already, but nonetheless, but also we need to make sure that we are encouraging developers to build affordable housing. And so I go back to that example that I used earlier where in lieu of fees exist. If you go to Roseville, I believe, this is secondhand news, but I believe that Roseville uses very high in lieu of fees.
Yep.
So if you are going to do a major project in Roseville, you are going to put affordable housing inside that major project because it's too expensive to not do it. Whereas if you do it in Placer County, unincorporated right now, then you're in a situation where you simply say, sure, $4 per square foot or whatever the number. I think it's actually like $1.50 a square foot, and I'm just going to go ahead and write a check because if I'm going to put 10 more luxury houses in an area, instead of having to put 10 affordable houses in there, I can just tag that price on across 110 houses. It's easy, simple. So I think to try to get to your comments, there should be something in here perhaps that encourages also methods, ideas, concepts, policies that make developers develop these lands. These,
I think this really is
Mr. Chair, I have
bifurcated.
an amendment to the amendment.
I feel like they're two very separate issues.
Let me take a swag at this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they are. I think they're highly related.
yeah.
I'm not sure the exact quote, but let's try this language by taking what Dan offered. And let's take the paragraph as presented. After the and in the middle where it starts with shall instead locate, I would strike everything after that and replace it with Dan's comment. So we retain the direction about protecting rural environments and character, but we strike the direction that it goes to a different part of the county. That should take away the divisive part of it, I think.
Yeah.
And add in Dan's comments that go to what I'm hoping the committee might view as part of the causality.
Are you also conceding to the framework of general plan focus that was mentioned?
I think the general plan focus.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like that, but then you didn't quite have enough meat on that.
No,
I mean, I didn't, you know,
it was
can we come up with actual language here?
Yeah, we need to write it out. Read it slowly.
Did you want to make?
So Dan, I would appreciate you restating your language because that.
Yeah, okay, so if
considering
you
it as
think
part of
this
the
might be a
motion.
concept that would work,
Yes.
what I was trying to get to was, and this is, I really believe this is related. I do believe it is related.
I agree.
I think they're opposite ends of the development spectrum. One is about the zoning aspect of what makes the
Right.
site applicable for the project, and the other one is once somebody's able to get in the door, how much are they paying for it?
No, let me give you an example, a concrete example, and then I'll read it. So when we did that zoning rehash, we finished and we had I don't know what it was, 9 properties, I don't know, but whatever. So those properties were now zoned to allow for high density 30, I think, or something. So they were rezoned, but nobody has to build on them. And right now, I think you would, I don't know, because this study is out there and maybe this study will answer this question, but I think we'll find that Placer County is not necessarily encouraging development of those particular sites, nor is it saying, hey, if you're going to build more than 100 houses right now, that's the number that's key.
Units.
That, yeah, a lot of people are simply saying, okay, I've got 110 slots. I'm supposed to build 10% of 100 in affordable, but I can simply pay you $10,000 and not have to do it, and then spread it out across 110 luxury homes.
Yeah.
So the idea is, first of all, we did that massive rezone and there's nobody that has to build on there. And secondly, we're not even encouraging in Placer County building affordable housing the way someplace like Roseville is. And others, other counties.
Let's get your language.
Okay, so yeah, so this says further, and this is again, this was just quick.
So you made the motion.
I realized that I
and
have to
then-
amend my motion and I'm
Okay.
happy to do it once we get there.
So this is further encourage policies that promote developers building affordable housing sufficient to meet RHNA. That's what I jotted down.
I don't know if we need to
Further encourage
make it RENA
policies
specific as
that-
much as it is housing assessment. Because there might be a new RENA down the road and they'll call it something else.
Okay.
And further encourage policies that.
Encourage policies that promote developers, or maybe encourage policies that promote developers building affordable housing sufficient to meet
How about they
state mandated requirements.
further
Holding-
enact policies that encourage development?
I think accountability, I mean, holding builders accountable to the expectations of their affordable housing allotment. I mean, that we're trying to hold them accountable.
Yeah, that gets specifically to in lieu of, and I think it's a broader issue. I mean, I use that as an example because people can latch on. to
Yeah,
it
I
and
know.
Something my little mind can figure out, but there are, I think, a bunch of other ways to encourage it as well,
Okay.
to encourage
All right,
development.
so I'm getting there slowly, I write slowly, sorry, and I edited it. So after the and, instead of what's there, further promote.
Can we say enact?
Well, I want to promote policies that encourage builders
How about enact policies that encourage the builders?
and. Well, we can strike further and just say enact, huh? And enact.
Yeah, right.
Enact policies that encourage builders to what?
Encourage developers building affordable housing sufficient to meet state requirements is what I had.
Yeah,
Something
developers,
along those lines.
Developers.
not builders. Yeah, developers.
Yeah, encourage developers to, what do you have?
To
Clayton?
build affordable housing sufficient to meet state requirements.
Yeah, that's good.
I amend my motion to say that.
Okay.
So let me take a shot at reading this back and
need to hear
let me
it
know if
before I
I've
second
got it
it.
off, because we've been through a few. So this would be a recommendation as an informational item that the board incorporate the following concept into the general plan process. And that is to protect rural and low-density zoned regions of the county from the encroachment of high-density development, which is inconsistent with the character of the local community or the zoning of neighborhood lands, comma, and enact policies that encourage developers to build affordable housing sufficient to meet state requirements. Period.
I like it, I second that.
Okay, we have first and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Let me just make sure that
It's
Einer's on board with that language,
Yes,
with his
yes, yes.
motion.
He writes alone.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It's pretty washed out, but you know what? It's still gonna be a good discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and this is an informational item.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're gonna take a break.
you.
Is a 5 minute or a 10 minute? You guys prefer 5 or 10?
What do we have left on the agenda?
Yeah.
We still have, these, other items that are pending further, informational reports on county authority
On the tax share.
to implement the tax share.
I
agreement.
yield.
What's that?
Well, if we can do this very quickly,
Okay,
what I got back from Ben and Clayton is that everything that I put in that we're asking for, they say is already required in the law. Is that effectively what you said?
we'll have to do public comment and stuff.
Let's get to the item. It's not that easy.
I have to,
It sure looked like it.
I have to do public comment, so how about a 5 minute?
Okay.
Take a
We're
break.
gonna do a 5 minute break. I'm gonna ask staff, can we get waters? Is that possible?
There's a fountain.
There's a drinking.
Okay,
fountain.
Yeah.
all right. We ready to go? back to order and go ahead and move on. We have these informational reports. We're on 3. Okay, 3. We're gonna move on to item three, which is the county authority to implement requirements for tax share agreements. And so if we have any comments, not discussion or deliberation or direction of a decision, but any comments or questions for staff at this point, before I open public comment, we can do that now. I know, were you gonna say something about this?
No.
Okay, so Steph, you want to use, are you gonna present on this?
That was the plan. yes.
Okay, Ben, go ahead.
All right, as the chair mentioned, this is the county authority to implement requirements for tax share agreements. I should note for the record that we did receive a draft proposal from committee member Mish on this item, which is attachment C to your staff report. So I'll give a quick summary of the tax share agreement and then a step-by-step process. I'll try and make it brief with the understanding and most of the information is already contained in the memo. So tax share agreements determine how property tax revenue is allocated when jurisdictional boundaries change, typically when a city annexes unincorporated land. The entire process is governed by Revenue and Taxation Code Section 99, which sets very specific steps, timelines, and requirements. Because this is a state mandated process, local charter amendments cannot override these rules. I'll provide a quick overview, like I mentioned, of the entire process, which begins when the city, for the most part, submits an annexation application to LAFCO. LAFCO then notifies the county. The county assessor has 30 days to provide assessed valuation data, and the auditor has 45 days to calculate the property tax revenues associated with the area. A fiscal impact analysis is then prepared that is conducted by an independent third-party consultant that's jointly selected by the city and the county. And this analysis evaluates projected revenues, service needs, and the cost of providing those services at build-out. And they have 30 days to complete that portion of the requirements. The county and the city then negotiate the tax sharing terms based on that fiscal impact analysis, and they have 60 days from the auditor's letter to commence those negotiations. If they cannot reach an agreement, they must engage in mediation, and they have 30 days per code. And if that fails, advisory arbitration, which is an additional 30 days after the mediation, both of which obviously have strict statutory guidelines. As far as transparency is required at multiple steps throughout the process, the agreement, including the fiscal analysis, must be presented publicly at a Board of Supervisors meeting, a City Council meeting, and a LAFCO hearing. All 3 bodies must approve the agreement in public before it can move forward. And finally, once the approvals are complete, LAFCO incorporates the agreement into the annexation process. Because the state has fully defined this framework, counties have very limited authority to modify it. Requirements such as binding arbitration or extended timelines would conflict with the state law requirement. There may be some indirect ways to address transparency or the review process, which has been discussed in previous meetings, such as some Brown Act committee, but not through altering the state mandated tax exchange system. And with that, this concludes this section of the report. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Staff or committee members, any questions for staff?
Is there a comparable process for when the county utilizes land for county purposes inside a city? Or is it just
No, there's not a comparable
there's no
process.
there's no
I don't presume that you looked outside the county to see if there's any large variance in the process.
We did look at other jurisdictions. I believe I reported on that in the previous meeting, but this is a state taxation code process. This is a requirement throughout the state for tax sharing agreements.
Okay.
So they must meet these requirements.
Gotcha.
Now, there is the ability, which the county does not do, which is to form kind of a master tax share agreement throughout all the incorporated areas in which it's a very standardized approach to tax share dependent upon the project type. However, that kind of removes some of the fidelity and discretion that both the city and the county have at negotiating terms on tax agreements. It's more black and white set out in the process. So we do not use that approach. We use a step-by-step negotiation approach with incorporated cities.
Gotcha.
So what are we adding if this is a state process?
That is a great question. There is a proposal, attachment C, which is from committee member Mesh, that includes some requirements that conflict with state law. So at face value, they wouldn't be able to be implemented.
You did this. You did this.
Yeah, but he didn't.
Yeah, it's attachment C.
See.
I know
Yeah.
which section, which areas are.
It's at the end. It's the very end.
It's the
Oh.
The
last.
timeline and that sort of thing, I
Good
guess.
faith
It's the entire, this is the entire proposal. Attachment C. It's the
Yeah.
one page. proposal.
Proposing something that conflicts with state law.
We're not.
This is not.
We've been doing that for the last 3 months. We've been
Yeah, we've been talking about
We've
it.
been talking about it, yeah.
I guess the only thing I'd say.
Council's Council's recommendation on this would be that state law has already provided the process. There is no mechanism through the charter to modify it.
When the mayor of Rockland, which is where this came from, right?
And
Principal-
Lincoln.
And Lincoln.
And Lincoln.
And like, okay,
Lincoln.
so when those mayors came in and talked to us. What was their, I'm at a loss a little bit.
Okay.
What was their primary problem?
I can tell you.
I know.
I think I can tell you. I have talked to Whitney Eklund, who is a council member in Lincoln, and I've talked to Sean Scully,
Oh, yeah.
who is their city manager, and talked to him via email extensively. They believe that the county is not doing what it says to do. They won't provide a detailed list of, here's all the things that we, the county, are going to have to provide to this area that's going to annex to the city. And this is how much it costs. And based upon us providing those services at this cost, we need this proportion of the tax revenue that's going to be generated by this land when it develops. So the county currently gets 100% of the tax revenue, but the land's vacant, right? So when after the land develops, how much of the new value of the land, the tax revenue goes up, how much does the county get? And because the county must agree, the county has ultimate leverage to demand whatever they want. Because if the city doesn't agree to what the county wants, the county just doesn't agree to it, and the annexation cannot proceed. And so they believe that the county has been very heavy-handed in not providing transparent information about to justify what it is that they say that they need in terms of tax revenue from this annexation area. And they won't respond to requests for meetings, and they just drag their feet and don't play well. And so I was proposing something that took the little nugget of information I got from Clayton the first time, that says state law says that the county has to negotiate in good faith. And so I took a wing at defining what good faith means.
Yeah.
Which is to say that they have to provide information, and they have to agree to, and they have to do it in a timely manner, and they have to agree to meet and go through this. What I got back from this last attempt, I think, is that's all already required.
Yeah, so maybe what we do is we say, hey, we had 2 mayors approach the CRC about an issue which appears to be outside of the charter, but is related to taxation, et cetera. And perhaps that, we would suggest that you have perhaps a workshop or a meeting or a forum with the Board of Supervisors And the mayors in Placer County, many of the mayors, some of the mayors, whoever wants to show up, and they talk about this issue. Because I can tell you, Dan Woodward relaying this information to the board of supervisors is like a dog watching television.
Yeah.
So,
and-
Not gonna work.
It
happens,
ain't gonna
though.
work,
It
right?
happens.
I agree.
Does,
I
that's
mean,
true.
I already got the news, you know? The state law already requires all of this. This is a non-issue. I
Yeah,
think
but
we
state
should
law,
drop it.
right, but they're not doing it apparently, according to the mayors, so the
According to-
board,
The way that,
needs to talk to the mayors.
the way
We
that I took the
validate
note
that.
down was that the negotiations were lacking the equity part of like the result in all of this, where it boiled down to sales tax impact on the commercial development. So
There's,
I think
yeah,
I
let me
asked the
provide a little
question.
clarification.
Last time I asked the question, did anybody validate this with Placer County? Because we had those two
Right, we have not.
representatives from those two cities, but I guess what I'm saying is that we've only heard one side of it.
You make a good point. We do have the county executive officer and we have a principal management analyst with the CEO's office.
Let's have Clayton
Oh,
provide
okay,
clarification, and I will open up to public
Okay,
comment.
thank you. I'm
But,
sorry,
or
I
we can
misunderstood.
ask
Excuse me,
people
thank you.
questions if they're willing
Okay,
to.
thank you.
Yeah, and I think
Wants to admit their
Yeah.
guilt, but okay.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think
say,
the CEO's office can expand on this a little bit, but there's two different issues with each of those jurisdictions. With the city of Lincoln, there were tax share agreements that were entered into with the city of Lincoln and county historically a long time back.
Mhm.
What the city has done is now they believe that those agreements are disproportionate based on the evolution of time, and they're asking for those to be amended and
Okay.
revisited.
Right.
For the city of Rockland, it's
This,
a little.
by the way, this made no attempt to address that issue.
And there's nothing in the statutes that deal with a mandatory reopening of an already
It's their
executed.
problem.
Yeah.
I'm talking, this is all about going forward.
Okay, okay.
The issue with the city of Rockland is a little bit different. In that instance, the county purchased two buildings within the city.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the mayor for the city was basically concerned about the loss of property taxes that would go to the city. And basically because the county had purchased them. So those were the two issues. The property tax issue from purchasing a property, that's not dealt with in the annexation requirement. This revenue and taxation code deals with annexation and those agreements. So separate matter, there is no legal requirement to reimburse the city if the county purchases property there.
these mayors need to take care of this themselves with the county,
Yeah,
it seems to me. I
Yeah.
mean, this is not.
rocket
Charter.
science, I mean.
Yeah.
I would also mention that we did have an item on the previous meeting about county-owned buildings within incorporated cities, and there was a discussion that took place, and then there was an action from this committee closing the item
Yeah.
for further
exactly. So how
discussion.
did it get
So-
opened back up?
Well, I don't think
Well,
it did. I think
because
there's just a little bit of.
It's broader. This
yeah.
one also was addressing the Lincoln issue.
Okay,
And so we wanted clarity on that. And you had mentioned last time that
Mhm.
have we confirmed this with the
Yeah.
county? And the hope was this agenda item
okay,
would provide that opportunity from the county perspective.
okay. Okay,
Anything else?
thank you.
Not for me.
I want to give an opportunity for, this county executive office to share or respond to what you've heard or what you've read. Happy to hear from you guys before I open to public comment. So, yeah, before.
All right, thank you, Charter Review Committee, Daniel Chapman, County Executive Officer. Thank you, Clayton, for clarifying the kind of the two distinct issues between the two mayors and what they presented, I think, at the original Charter Review Committee. And it's a little difficult, and I think I heard it from the committee already that, what's happened in the past has happened in the past. However, I think the more recent conversations from the city of Lincoln or with the city of Lincoln are very centered around those old agreements. Where they are asking to reopen those to have what they would deem more equitable comparisons or equitable shares. However, I think some of the points that we made through the Charter Review Committee and through some of the staff memos is you can't just compare one city's tax share agreements with another city's tax share agreements. That doesn't define what the purpose of that tax share agreement is for. As an example, the city of Roseville has a higher property tax share than many or most of, I think all of the other cities in Placer County. we have sales tax agreements with the city of Roseville that offset that as well. So if you're just looking at it proportionally, that they're at this percent and this one's at this percent, there are reasons for that. And those are drawn out during the negotiations with them. Most recently, I think at the end of July of 2025, we received a letter from the city of Lincoln to reopen 4 tax share agreements and to provide a more equitable split between the county and the city share. We have been engaged since that point in time with the city of Lincoln to address that request. We've had a conversation with our board of supervisors. We've made email requests for certain information. One, we wanted to establish which tax rate areas are included in the various tax share agreements, so we knew what we were actually looking at. Since then, I think we've had 2 meetings so far with the city staff, the city manager and their assistant city manager, finance director. And we've expanded on kind of what we are still looking for in order to do that analysis. So when we talk about cost of service analysis, or what's the item that we're trying to solve or look for, we would do the exact same thing. We would produce our cost of service analysis. We haven't received that piece yet. We've also asked for information, and it comes a little bit more piecemeal. So in our most recent meeting, we asked for. They did a short analysis comparing 2 of their tax rate areas to a tax rate area in the city of Roseville and one in the city of Rockland. And they calculated what a base property tax split change might equate to them. And the most recently, we asked for that to be expanded to all 4 and to not only just not look at the base, but also look at increment as well. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to fact find at this point, so I can deliver something back to my board of supervisors to get direction on what our next steps might be. I think we reached out last week to set up our next meeting, which I think I believe is scheduled for later this month, to try to have one more before the end of the year. So it's a kind of a mixed bag of bananas and apples and oranges. And we're trying to really square down and fact find what those things are. But I would say to this committee that the county has been receptive to the request, and we are in that fact-finding mentality of trying to identify exactly what we're looking for, so I can bring that back to the board of supervisors to do that. But there are, different reasons for why different tax rates come out at different percentages, even within a city. And I would say, I think with like the city of Rockland, we have 1 tax share agreement, and it covers the whole thing. So, I don't know if that helps or not, but we are trying to be responsive to their request, gather the data and the facts that I think would be relevant to present back to my board of supervisors to determine our next steps.
Well,
Is there,
for me, it's helpful to know that, or I think I heard you say that the county intends to do a cost of service analysis. In other words, you're going to put numbers to, this is what we're going to have to provide, and this is what it costs.
True, and I believe that we have done that in the most recent new tax share agreements with the city of Lincoln for Village 5 and Sub B. So we do that, and we would continue to do that. So,
is there any discussion with Rockland regarding the lost property taxes on all the newer county buildings going on? Is that a discussion intended to exchange funds between the county?
I'll leave that for now, but we have what we call 2x2s or city county liaison meetings, 2 members of our board of supervisors, 2 members of staff, 1 from each side, that meet on a regular basis, like every other month. And this is a topic that continues to come up with the city of Rockland specifically on that.
Okay. So it sounds like you're proactively addressing these issues when they do come up. As far as tax share, share of revenue, is there anything that you see from a charter perspective that we can do to assist or like make sure that there's some sort of guidance in this aspect? Because I feel like this is, a little bit much more in your realm, and we're kind of hearing about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would agree with what Mr. Cook has said earlier. That I think this is well defined within revenue or R&T tax code 99, and that we follow that process when these come forward.
Gotcha. How often do these situations arise, at least for you on like maybe an annual basis for somebody to reopen negotiation on a contract?
In my tenure with Placer County, I believe the only time that I've seen this is currently.
Oh,
And then previously when the city of Lincoln requested what we call an interim tax share, limited term tax share agreement. So I can't remember the year that we started it, but it was several years ago where we did enter into a limited term shift of some property tax to them to help support their public safety operations.
So it's not typical to put a sunset or an expiration clause in these agreements, kind of force the revisiting of them?
No, I think the agreements in general allow for each party to request a reopening. But much like the decision making on the actual tax share, it's gonna be a mutual decision.
very good.
Thank you.
Why would, just a quick question, would the county ever request maybe a negotiation of that tax share agreement? Would that ever come from you?
It could,
Yeah.
I think to be fair to kind of the whole world of things that we're in, there's a lot of cities and counties alike statewide that are struggling with budget right now. In fact, I was at a conference last week where my Association of County Executives sat for better part of an hour and a half talking about their individual strategies to do that. So this is a thing that's statewide that people are struggling on balancing their budgets, tax shares, sales tax agreements, and even sales tax measures, a tax increase are all on the table for all parties, usually all the time. So
I want to thank you for sticking around
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you.
And we talked about a lot of things, so it was very helpful for you to share tonight, so thank you.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
I'm gonna open up for public comment, and if you guys don't mind
Yeah.
sticking around for that. Anyone here in the audience wish to provide public? Sometimes you never know. Okay. Okay, anyone online? Okay. So there's a little delay, so I'm just gonna pause. Either to make sure. Oh, okay. But not raised yet, okay. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment. And I'd like to bring it back to us for discussion and deliberation, perhaps a motion for this item.
I'd move to just withdraw that.
Move it to the close.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
We have a first and a second.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote for that. Oh, yeah, Woodward, yeah. And so I guess you could say aye or yes or nay or no.
What's your pleasure?
Okay, yeah, what do you choose?
Voting.
Yes.
So I need to.
A yes is to close.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right, we're gonna move on to item 4, new topics to consider. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any new items related to the charter that the committee or members of the public would like to raise for discussion? We're gonna start with committee members. Any new items that have been brought to your attention?
Pass time. Yeah.
Do
Do you have any new items? Okay. No, I don't have any.
Oh. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'm gonna ask the public. I'm gonna open up to the public. If you would like to speak on any new items for us to consider regarding charter review committee, please raise your hand. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I have some.
Oh.
We did have some that in the first
Okay.
meeting, by the way.
I'm just trying to pause. There is a delay, so I've been
Okay.
trained to. Okay, I'm gonna close public comment. And we're gonna go ahead and move on to our final agenda item is to determine whether the committee wishes to convene an additional meeting. The committee's previous direction was to hold a total of 5 meetings, with one in West Placer, one in Tahoe, a 3 p.m. start time. If you recall, the previously scheduled Tahoe meeting was canceled due to weather. And we had some challenges with that. Would the committee like to set an additional meeting in Tahoe? And if so, what is the preferred start time? We could start at different time, perhaps 10. But
What would be the purpose of the?
Yeah, but we did that thinking that we were only gonna have one online meeting. And all of our meetings have been accessible via
Yeah.
whatever Zoom or whatever. So I don't think we need one.
Have they been marketed in North Tahoe at all?
They go out on the
Just,
site.
just to the extent of posting the agenda online, and we've also had a couple county articles on the Charter Review Committee as well.
Okay.
That links to the link to the virtual
I think the
participation.
ability for us to host in Tahoe is even rougher going forward
Yeah,
than it was
exactly.
here last month.
Mm.
So, you know, weather permitting, I don't mind us getting together, but if we don't have really much more to discuss. You know, I think we have one formal recommendation and then 2 or 3 informational.
We have a couple.
we can we'll summarize before we
Yeah,
leave.
yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
Much as you guys are gonna shoot me, but I think I would like to have one more meeting. If the only thing on it is to review our transmittal to the county.
I totally agree with that.
Okay. One more. What, here, maybe here.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't care where,
Um,
but I prefer not Tahoe.
I guess only question is, if we do that, it's obviously a public forum. But is there a way to kind of say, this is to review what we're sending forward and we are not open for more good ideas?
Can we limit the
Yes.
agenda?
Well, you still would need to take public comment, but we would remove the new topics to consider
Yeah,
item, and it
okay.
would just be, the only item would be reviewing.
we'll
the-
still have public
Well,
comment on
But
items. not on
we
the-
may decide to
Yeah, there might-
wordsmith some of
Yeah.
it, because, you know, just doing this stuff on the fly is.
If somebody
It's
has
always
good
good to be able to read it.
Yeah, that was my same concern, and if you weren't thinking of having another meeting, my suggestion would be some sort of recommendation that staff can prepare something and circulate it.
Okay.
But if you are doing another meeting, obviously that gives us the time to then
Yeah.
prepare something that you can then
And then
formally approve.
we should, that agenda needs to allow us to kind of discuss how we're presenting that too. I mean, I
Yeah.
would probably make a motion that
Yeah.
the chair, be requested the chair presents to the Board of Supervisors or something like that. That might not be an actionable item, but I want to make sure we can discuss that.
So will the language be exactly how it would show up on the ballot or how it would be just presented to
Yeah,
the
good
supervisors?
question. Yeah.
We would be bringing forward what you've chosen, so for some of them, we have exact language, and for some of them, we have recommendations.
Okay,
It's a little bit of both.
okay. Okay,
It looked like in the past, the transmittal was proposed ballot language. Is that a true statement or not?
I've only done this one other time. What I believe we did was we brought forward a recommendation to the board and then finalized it in ballot language that the board then approved. So it was a
Okay.
2-meeting process at the board.
Okay.
Well, the board can edit, obviously, right? They can amend and do what they want to.
Right. Not 100% sure on that, but I believe that was.
How should we decide when the next meeting would occur? Can we do that at the next open available time with?
I don't know if we could do it now. That would be my choice. I got a calendar in front of me.
So if you don't mind, tomorrow I can poll all the committee members again, the last poll, and ask what dates
Okay.
not to schedule and schedule at the earliest.
And what kind
convenience.
of time, just a ballpark, but what kind of timeline are we? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Are we, for you guys to be able to get your, obviously we have holidays coming up.
Yeah.
But
Gonna be after.
I would account for right around 4 weeks with the understanding I'll
Okay.
work with Clayton to kind of
okay,
work as fast as possible.
so we're talking
Trying to
into
get something going.
January, some point, a final meeting here in Auburn. With an agenda item to review the proposal that will go to Board of Supervisors with. An option to hear from the public on non-agenda items as well, but one agenda item. Pretty much, and maybe approve minutes.
Yes.
Okay. if you guys are good with that, do we need a motion for that?
The one thing I would just ask, is there a preferred time for the committee? Do you like the 3 p.m. start time, or at this point, would you like something earlier in the day?
Oh, not earlier.
Yeah, no,
That's a challenge.
Okay.
3 is good for me.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, it works for me.
Fine.
Much as I appreciate everybody working late.
Troy, you good with 3?
Yes,
You
yes.
okay? All right. I need a
We do
motion.
need a formal motion on that. I have one more final meeting here in Auburn to review the final proposal and approve potential minutes.
Yes.
Move what he said.
Second.
We have first and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
My bad.
I think the whole.
I didn't catch the second. Was that?
It was everybody.
We have to identify somebody with it.
Dan wants to make sure he shows up on the.
No, I wanted to give, no, I got the last, I stole the last one.
Dan's really bet his performance.
Seconded.
Sorry.
All right.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Alexi,
Aye.
Herzog.
All right. Hey, before I just adjourn, here you go. Okay, I want to thank everyone. You know, the process, you know, we've done a lot of hard work. You guys have invested your time and energy into this, and I really appreciate it. A lot of great thinking here. Had a good discussion. I want to thank committee members. I really want to thank staff and council. You guys, excellent job. We gave you very ambiguous, difficult, many things didn't even relate. And you did a lot of work that we asked you to do without a complaint and without a, you
That we
know,
heard.
a shrug. Yeah, we know about.
And we got
I wanna
to make
thank-
fun of them and joke.
I want to thank technical staff
Yeah.
for, you know, we had only one sound issue in all of our meetings and
Yes.
you solved it really quick. And staff, thank you for putting on great meetings. We're always comfortable, appreciate your effort. And the public, you know, to me, this is all about the public. And I think it's important that we always listen
Mhm.
and take to heart what the public says. These meetings are important. And if we don't take to heart the public, then why are we doing this? And so it's really important to me. And so I want to thank the public. And I know we might have one person online right now, but we've had a lot of input. We've had a lot of input from the public, and it should influence what we think, how we make decisions, and that's important. So thank you, everyone. We'll have one more meeting. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can all attend. And have a great holiday coming up, and we'll adjourn the meeting.
Great
And
job,
thank
Nate.
you, Nate.
Great job, Nate. You got a great chair.